Chapter 543. Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian teamed up, and their combined strength was not as simple as 1 + 1. Han Da and Han Er were both top-notch venerable 9 stars, but they could not even withstand one move from Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian. The two of them fell far away, blood gushing out of their bodies. They were severely injured, and Yi Xing had shown them mercy. Otherwise, if the tip of the spear had pierced their throats, they would have died. The Donghan Empire was much more powerful than the 3 upper-rank empires of the East Divine Continent. It was a direct subordinate of the Deyuan dynasty. If he killed them, Yi Xing was afraid that the Donghan Empire would have a way to find him. At the end of the year, the 3rd genius tryout would be held. Yi Xing did not want to cause any trouble. He wanted to take this opportunity to explore the extraterritorial Star Land. Therefore, Yi Xing did not kill them. Otherwise, he and Wei Qingxian could have killed the Howling Moon Wolves. Killing these 5 people would be a piece of cake. Han Sheng and Han Ming, the 2 venerable 9 stars, were severely injured. Only the venerable 7 stars was not injured. They looked at Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian with fear. Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian did not look at them. They turned and left. Wait! Han Sheng had already taken a healing elixir to stop the bleeding. He struggled to stand up and said, "Do you dare to leave your names? I will return the humiliation today 10-fold." Yi Xing did not stop. He said, "What? You are not strong enough, so you want to seek revenge from your father and grandfather? Ha! If you are really capable, I will wait for you at the 3rd genius tryout." After Yi Xing finished speaking, he and Wei Qingxian crossed a mountain and disappeared from the 5 people's sight. Han Sheng angrily slapped the ground with his palm. The astral star palm imprint shook the ground and shattered it. However, this action immediately tore open his wound, triggering the injury. Blood flowed out again, and he couldn't help but release a miserable groan, his face pale. After encountering the 5 cultivators from the Eastern Han Empire, Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian continued to encounter other teams in the following days. The Ian extreme flower that grew in the periphery of the ancient ruins was extremely rare and could only be found by chance. 99% of the martial practitioners that entered the ancient ruins rushed to the land of extreme Ian at the center of the ancient ruins. Only there would they have a higher chance of obtaining an Ian extreme flower. Therefore, the closer they got to the land of extreme negative energy, the higher the chances of encountering other cultivators. Apart from some unpleasantness with Han Sheng's group, they didn't have any conflicts with the other groups. Most of those who had entered the primordial ruins were warriors from the East Divine Continent. Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian had been rising stars in the genius selection at the end of last year. Most of the warriors from the East Divine Continent knew them. Of course, this was also because other people didn't know that they had the Ian Extreme Flower. Otherwise, there might be some ignorant martial practitioners who would take the risk and kill them to steal their treasures. Along the way, when they encountered other martial practitioners, Yi Xing and Yun Ruoyan went their separate ways, rejecting all requests to team up with them. If they encountered ancient monster beasts, they would kill them. Later on, they didn't encounter any more beast packs like the Howling Moon Demon Wolves. Yi Xing and Yun Ruoyan had a smooth journey. Half a month after obtaining the Ian Extreme Flower, Yi Xing and Yun Ruoyan finally arrived at the center of the ancient ruins. The land of Extreme Ian was just ahead. The land of Extreme Ian was very different from the other places in the ancient ruins. Firstly, the sky was more than 10 times darker. In the ancient ruins, the sky was a dark yellow and the light was not bright. But in the land of Extreme Ian, the sky was dark. Even with the eyesight of a person, it was difficult to see far. It was like night. In particular, the ground of the land of Extreme Ian was filled with black Ian Qi. Some areas were even filled with surging Ian Qi, blocking one's line of sight. No one could see anything clearly. Moreover, this land of Extreme Ian not only had Ian Qi, but it also exuded an aura that made one's heart palpitate. It seemed very dangerous. The center of the ancient ruins was not small. It was hundreds of thousands of miles wide. Many martial practitioners were scattered throughout the ancient ruins. Yi Xing and Yun Ruoyan stood outside the land of Extreme Ian. There were no other martial practitioners nearby. This land of extreme Yin is a place of great danger. Not only is the Yin Qi rich, but there is also blood Qi and ghost Qi. In ancient times, countless martial practitioners must have died here. Their blood dyed this land red. Yi Xing looked into the distance and scanned with his super brain. After observing for a long time, he said this. If the land of extreme Yin was only rich in Yin Qi, then martial practitioners could use the purple sun pill to disperse the Yin Qi in their bodies and stay in the land of extreme Yin for a long time. However, if there was also blood Qi and ghost Qi, even Venerable 9-star wouldn't be able to stay in the land of extreme Yin for a long time. At most, he could stay for a day or two. In this way, any martial practitioner could only explore a small part of the periphery of the land of extreme Yin. They couldn't set foot in most of the areas. Even the strongest Venerable 9-star could stay in the land of extreme Yin for 2 days by relying on his astral stars to block the blood Qi. However, he could only enter and leave in 1 day. In addition to the time spent searching for the Yin Extreme Flower, the furthest he could go was less than a day's walk. No wonder the Yin Extreme Flower is so rare. Even if the land of extreme Yin is suitable for the growth of the Yin Extreme Flower, there are too few places that martial practitioners can explore. I'm afraid they won't be able to obtain many Yin Extreme Flowers in the land of extreme Yin. Yi Xing sighed. The Yin Extreme Flower would be of great use to him when he broke through to the Venerable Realm in the future. He still wanted to obtain more. Looking at the land of extreme Yin in front of him, Yi Xing knew that even if he was lucky, he wouldn't be able to obtain many Yin Extreme Flowers. Yi Xing, others might not be able to obtain many Yin Extreme Flowers, but we are different. As long as we have enough time, it won't be a problem for us to harvest all the Yin Extreme Flowers in the land of extreme Yin. Wei Qingxian smiled and said, How is that possible? The purple yang pill can dispel the Yin Qi, but the blood Qi and ghost Qi can't be dispelled by pills. We can't go deep into the land of extreme Yin. Yi Xing said in surprise. Brother Yi Xing, you have your secrets, and so do I. I've already seen your supreme astrology. Now, it's time for you to take a look at mine. Wei Qingxian said as she stepped forward and walked into the land of extreme Yin. Ultimate astrology? Yi Xing's expression was shocked, and he immediately followed. The two of them used astral energy to protect their bodies, forming an astral shield around them. Above the astral shield, there was a constant sizzling sound. This was the blood Qi corroding the astral shield, forcing a martial artist to constantly circulate astral energy to maintain it. Otherwise, once the astral shield broke, the blood Qi and ghostly ghost Qi would enter their body, turning them into a bloodthirsty madman and then a black-furred zombie. Qingxian also has a supreme astrology? What kind of astrology can allow one to walk freely here? Yi Xing thought. Chapter 544. Yi Xing, I can't expose my supreme astrology for the time being. There might be other martial artists in the periphery of the land of extreme negative energy. Once we go deeper into the land of extreme negative energy, I'll use my astrology to pave the way. Wei Qingxian said. Astral energy protected her body as she walked quickly. Yi Xing followed closely behind. The deeper they went into the land of extreme negative energy, the stronger the Yin Qi and the more suitable it was for Yin Extreme Flowers to grow. Obviously, the deeper they went, the more Yin Extreme Flowers there were. The two did not deliberately look for Yin Extreme Flowers. They went straight into the depths of the land of extreme negative energy and did not encounter other martial artists along the way. After advancing for more than an hour, the two suddenly encountered an attack. It was a blood-red figure that was extremely fast and came and went almost without a trace. This blood-red figure's strength was not high. It was equivalent to a 6-star's venerable master. However, with its extremely fast speed and elusive figure, it could easily kill a 7-star's venerable master. It's a blood fiend. Yi Xing shouted. He and Wei Qingxian were very strong and easily avoided the blood fiend's attack. Blood fiends could only be born in places where blood gathered. This land of extreme negative energy was full of blood fiend Qi. Yi Xing judged that this place had once flowed with blood, so it was not surprising that a blood fiend would appear. In the land of extreme negative energy, martial artists not only had to resist the erosion of Blood Fiend Qi, but they also had to resist the attacks of the Blood Fiend. This way, their astral energy would be depleted faster and the area they could explore in the land of extreme negative energy would be smaller. Moreover, the dangers in the land of extreme negative energy did not only come from the Blood Fiend Qi. Martial artists might also face the attacks of the black-furred zombies. If a martial artist's astral energy was exhausted and the Blood Fiend Qi and Eerie Ghost Qi invaded their body, they would go crazy for a short time. They would become extremely bloodthirsty and kill anyone they saw. After a while, the martial artists controlled by the Blood Fiend Qi would die. At this time, the Eerie Ghost Qi would play its role again, causing the dead martial artists to grow black hair all over their bodies and become black-furred zombies. Black-furred zombies not only had the strength of their lives, but their bodies would also be greatly strengthened. They would have the body of a corpse-style martial artist, the star energy and martial arts attainments. Black-furred zombies were obviously much more terrifying than corpse-style martial artists. Whoosh, another ear-piercing sound rang out. Xianxia once again rushed over from afar, charging towards Wei Qingxian. Xianxiao's brain scanned and locked onto Xianxia's figure. The dragon blood spear appeared and stabbed out like a stream of light. Puff! The blood shadow was pierced by Yixing's spear. The force of the spear vibrated and shattered the Blood Fiend into nothingness. It couldn't be more dead. Blood Fiend's speed was swift, appearing and disappearing unpredictably. To other martial artists, it was very terrifying. But in front of Yixing, it was not worth mentioning. The two of them continued forward. Not long after, they encountered another Blood Fiend, which was similarly shattered by Yixing's spear. The two of them advanced for several hours. Although they didn't go out of their way to search for it, they still encountered a Aeon Extreme Flower along the way. The Eternal Flower was a strange flower that could be used to perceive the strength of the universe. It was only useful to half-step venerables or venerables. Whether it was the Blood Fiends or the black-furred zombies of the land of extreme negative energy, the Eternal Flower was useless to them. Moreover, there were no monster beasts living in the land of extreme negative energy. Thus, the Eternal Flower of the land of extreme negative energy wasn't guarded by Blood Fiends or black-furred zombies. As long as one found it, they could safely harvest it. Blood Fiends and black-furred zombies were only interested in the flesh and blood of martial artists. As long as they existed, in theory there was a chance of encountering them anywhere in the land of extreme negative energy. Of course, the conditions for Blood Fiends to form were extremely difficult and there weren't many of them. In particular, black-furred zombies were even rarer. It wasn't easy for martial artists to encounter them in the land of extreme negative energy. After walking for another 2 hours, Wei Qingxian came to a stop. We've been going deeper for more than half a day. For safety reasons, other martial artists won't come here for the time being. I can use star energy to open the way. Wei Qingxian said. Suddenly, a beam of starlight rushed out from between her eyebrows and flew into the sky. Yixing immediately looked up and saw that the starlight had turned into countless stars. These stars were connected together and emitted a holy light. It looked like a beautiful girl with long hair fluttering in the wind. Constellation star energy? Yixing looked surprised. Could it be Virgo star energy? On Earth, there were 12 constellations, but this was the star continent. Although Yixing's Archer constellation was called Sagittarius star energy, he wasn't sure if Wei Qingxian's star energy was Virgo star energy. Holy light, purification. Wei Qingxian bellowed. The Virgo constellation's light aura flourished. The yin qi around Wei Qingxian, baleful blood qi, gloomy ghost qi, all disappeared under the holy light. In an instant, the space within a 10-mile radius returned to normal. Other than the dim light, it was no different from the space outside. The yin energy, blood fiend energy, ghostly energy, and other evil energy that filled the void were all purified by the holy light and disappeared without a trace. Moreover, a blood fiend a few miles away was illuminated by the holy light. It let out a mournful cry and emitted green smoke before dissipating. I also have 2-star energy. This is my constellation star energy, Virgo star energy. Wei Qingxian turned around and smiled at Yi Xing. Although the Virgo star energy doesn't have much effect on increasing combat power, it has the effect of purifying all evil energy. As long as I'm around, the evil energy around me will retreat, and I can travel unimpeded in the land of extreme negative energy. Yi Xing stared blankly at Yi Xing. His expression was a little dazed. Wei Qingxian was already a stunning beauty. Now that she was shrouded in the holy light, her body was also emitting holy light. She was like a goddess illuminated by holy light. She was 10 times more stunning. Yi Xing! Yi Xing! Wei Qingxian shouted twice. Yi Xing only reacted when Yi Xing came back to his senses. His face was full of embarrassment. All this time, his super brain was powerful, and he had the black hole star energy between his eyebrows. This allowed him to be very calm no matter what he encountered. This was the first time he was absent-minded. Wei Qingxian blushed and said, "What are you looking at? Are you stupid?" Yi Xing smiled embarrassedly and said, "Qingxian, you don't know how beautiful you are now. No, your temperament now can't be described as beautiful. It's blasphemy to call you a fairy. You're a goddess." What a glib tongue. Wei Qingxian said, a happy smile on her face. "Let's go deeper. There are more Ian flowers deeper in, and we won't encounter any other martial artists." Yi Xing gathered his thoughts. His super brain began to operate, his expression calm. Of course, he wouldn't act like a fool again. He nodded and said, "Let's go. My eye technique can see into the distance. This time, I must plunder all the Ian flowers here." A single stalk of eternity flower was worth 5,000 merit points. What about 100 stalks of eternity flowers? Yi Xing was extremely excited. There are also a large number of eternity flowers that have withered without anyone picking them. The journey from the ancient ruins to the land of extreme negative energy took a month. If today was the 1st of September, then the two of them had indeed spent nearly 2 months in the land of extreme negative energy. Yi Xing said, "We've obtained enough eternity flowers. Let's go back." Wei Qingxian nodded. On the way back, the two of them took stock of the Ian extreme flowers. Over the past 2 months, they had harvested the least amount of Ian extreme flowers on a single day, and they had harvested the most amount of Ian extreme flowers on a single day. The total number of eternity flowers harvested was 928. The two of them divided it equally, each obtaining 464 eternity flowers. A single eternity flower was extremely precious. The eternity flowers in their hands were undoubtedly treasures that could not be measured in terms of value. The two of them gained much more than all the teams that entered the ancient ruins. After counting the eternity flowers, the two of them smiled at each other, joy in their eyes. With so many eternity flowers, it was enough for them to become venerables in the future. Because they had searched 1,000 miles horizontally and layer by layer, the distance they advanced each day was not far. Now, the two of them left the land of extreme negative energy on a straight path. It only took them a little more than 3 days to leave the land of extreme negative energy. During this time, the two of them encountered 2 black-furred zombies. When they entered the land of extreme negative energy, there were no black-furred zombies, but when they came out, they encountered them on the periphery. Obviously, some cultivators had died in the land of extreme negative energy and turned into black-furred zombies. Blood fiends would be injured by the holy light, but black-furred zombies would not. However, the cultivators that died in the land of extreme negative energy did not have high cultivation. Even though their strength increased by an entire realm after turning into black-furred zombies, they were still not Yi Xing's opponent. Yi Xing killed them without much effort. The time for the eternity flowers to bloom had passed, and all the teams had evacuated. Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian spent more than 3 days to come out of the land of extreme negative energy. They were already the last group, lagging behind everyone else. 1 step behind, 1 step behind. A month later, the two of them arrived at the edge of the ancient ruins, but they did not encounter any other cultivators. When they arrived at the beach of the ancient ruins, the array formation disappeared. The two of them used their top-grade flying spirit artifacts to soar into the sky, flying over the sea and heading east. Those who should have left had already left. The two of them should be the last group. Haha. 2 days ago, all the cultivators in the ancient ruins had basically evacuated. I didn't expect that there would still be people coming out of the ancient ruins today. Not long after the two of them left the ancient ruins, they were stopped by someone. One of them was laughing loudly, surrounded by the other cultivators. Obviously, he was the leader of these cultivators. These cultivators were all enlightened masters, and there were more than 100 of them. Among them, there were more than a dozen high-level astral realm cultivators. The person laughing was a 9-star realm cultivator, but his aura was much stronger than the other 9-star realm cultivators. Among the 9-star realm cultivators that Yi Xing had met, only Honda and Han Er could compare with him, but they were still slightly inferior. In addition to this person, there were 2 other 9-star realm cultivators standing on his left and right, looking respectful. Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian stopped and stared coldly at the cultivators in front of them. There were 3 pirate gangs in the sea between East Ruins Island and the ancient ruins. Among them, the Sea Shark Gang had been annihilated by Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian on their way to the ancient ruins. These cultivators must belong to the other 2 gangs. The laughing 9-star realm cultivator sized up Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian. His gaze paused on Wei Qingxian for a few seconds, and surprise appeared on his face. However, his composure was obviously much stronger than a normal person's. He quickly recovered and continued, "You two have been hiding in the ancient ruins until today, hee. Looks like you're pretty lucky to have obtained a lot of eternity flowers, huh?" Yi Xing's gaze swept across the cultivators and fixed on the speaker. He said, "There are 3 great pirate gangs in this sea area. The Sea Shark Gang has been annihilated. Are you from Azure Dragon Island or Sky Waterfort?" 9-star realm cultivator at the center released a terrifying aura and said, "I am the master of Azure Dragon Island. Kid, hand over all your storage rings, and this island master will let you live." Yi Xing smiled faintly and said, "Azure Dragon Island, huh? I'll send you to meet up with the Sea Shark Gang. You can be pirates in the Netherworld." The master of Azure Dragon Island was surprised and said, "You were the ones who annihilated the Sea Shark Gang?" Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian exchanged a glance with each other and smiled. Killing intent appeared in their eyes. Kevin is so stuck that he wants to die. Damn, the update is a little late. Sorry. Chapter 546. Since they were pirates from the Azure Dragon Island, even if they didn't provoke Yi Xing would still eliminate them. Now that the Azure Dragon Island had delivered themselves to his doorstep, he naturally had to seize this opportunity to eliminate this pirate force. In this sea region, the Azure Dragon Island, the Sky Water Fort, and the Sea Shark Gang had both competition and cooperation. Now that the Sea Shark Gang had been eliminated, if the strongest Azure Dragon Island was also eliminated, the Sky Water Fort wouldn't be able to stand alone and would be eliminated by other martial artists sooner or later. Although Yi Xing didn't answer, Yi Xing and Wei Qingxuan's expressions allowed the Azure Dragon Island Lord to confirm that the Sea Shark Gang was indeed eliminated by the 2 of them. Although the Sea Shark Gang couldn't be compared to the Azure Dragon Island, the Sea Shark Gang's leader wasn't weak either. Apart from the Azure Dragon Island Lord, the other 2 9-star venerables weren't his match. The Azure Dragon Island Lord thought to himself, if they were the ones who eliminated the Sea Shark Gang, wouldn't their strength be a threat to me? Thinking of this, the Azure Dragon Island Lord waved his hand and shouted, "Brothers, go. Don't hold back on this brat and kill him. Take it easy on this beauty and don't take her life." Although the Azure Dragon Island Lord didn't believe that the 2 7-star venerables, Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian, could eliminate the Sea Shark Gang, the Azure Dragon Island had the advantage in numbers. Obviously, the Azure Dragon Island Lord wouldn't take the risk himself and would attack as a group. It didn't matter if the other party had the strength to eliminate the Sea Shark Gang. If they attacked together, even a half-step honorable would have a hard time. "Kill!" Yi Xing coldly shouted. A ray of starlight soared into the sky and turned into the flame astral projection. The dragon blood spear instantly appeared in his hand. Wei Qingxian also used the cold ice astral projection. Her left hand executed the floating snow divine palm and her right hand executed the ice congealing sword art, attacking the pirates. The seawater below was instantly frozen. Wei Qingxuan's ice attribute martial art was even more terrifying in a place with water. The extreme cold qi went straight to the bone. Apart from the astral realm venerables who could endure it for free, the rest of the sages were shivering from the cold and their movements naturally slowed down. Wind Shadow Spear Art. Yi Xing thrust out his spear, and the astral spear shot out like a stream of light. In the blink of an eye, he had thrust out nearly 100 times. The opponent's movements were slow, but Yi Xing's gun speed was not slow. Puff, puff, puff. Before the attacks of the pirates could reach them, the densely packed astral spears were already thrusting towards them. The pirates of the Azure Dragon Island fell onto the ice below like rain. Every martial artist who fell had a bloody hole pierced through their throats. All of them died. In the blink of an eye, several dozen Azure Dragon Island cultivators died. Not only did these pirates fall under Yi Xing's spear, but many of them were also struck by the cold ice sword aura and turned into ice sculptures, dying on the spot. The speed of death was simply too fast. Although there were a lot of pirates in the Azure Dragon Island, there were only a little over 100 of them. In the blink of an eye, nearly a third of them had died. This caused the other pirates to feel fear in their hearts. Even the two venerable 9 stars were frightened. Facing Yi Xing's spear technique, they felt a chill in their hearts. Azure Dragon Soaring Style. Seeing that Yi Xing's and Wei Qingxuan's strength was actually so terrifying, the Azure Dragon Island's lord was enraged. He directly attacked, charging at Yi Xing. An Azure Dragon Astral Light, several hundred meters long, charged over with extremely horrifying might. Everywhere it passed, the ice shattered, and the spear images were destroyed. Afterimage footwork. The strength of the Azure Dragon Island's lord was indeed extraordinary. Yi Xing dodged the Azure Dragon Astral Light and moved his body, dodging the attack of the Azure Dragon Astral Light. Wei Qingxian created an ice lotus with every step she took. She was also very fast, and the Azure Dragon Astral Light missed. Kill! The Azure Dragon Island's lord roared ferociously and formed hand seals. After the Azure Dragon Astral Light missed, he instantly turned around and charged at Yi Xing, ice sealing style. Wei Qingxian shouted. The ice on her icicle sword surged as she executed her ultimate move. The terrifying chill multiplied. Even the air was covered with a layer of frost. Countless icicles emerged from the ice on the surface of the sea. Many pirates were killed by the icicles. The icicle sword qi collided with the Azure Dragon Astral Light. Although the icicle sword qi was shattered, it also greatly reduced the speed of the Azure Dragon Astral Light. Shadowless kill. Yi Xing and Wei Qingxuan's teamwork was extremely tacit and seamless. They immediately displayed the ultimate move of the Wind Shadow Spear art. The Dragon Blood Spear thrust forward. It was no longer a series of thrusts in an instant. Instead, it was a single thrust with all its strength. The spear was so fast that it did not even leave behind a shadow. Puff! Blood splattered. When the spear image appeared again, the tip of the spear had already pierced the throat of the Azure Dragon Island's lord. At this moment, the Azure Dragon Astral Light was still several dozen meters away from Yi Xing due to the obstruction of the icicle sword qi. The Azure Dragon Astral Light instantly scattered. The Azure Dragon Island's lord revealed an expression of disbelief. This is impossible. Fresh blood gushed out from the Azure Dragon Island's lord's mouth. He did not dare to believe all of this. Even if he believed that Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian had exterminated the Sea Shark Gang, he did not think that he would die. He, the Azure Dragon Island's lord, was far from being comparable to the Sea Shark Gang's lord. However, he had now embarked on the same path of death as the Sea Shark Gang's lord. Impossible? Do you think you won't die just because you say it's impossible? Yi Xing smiled. The dragon blood spear shook and instantly withdrew. Blood spurted out from the Azure Dragon Island's lord's throat. With both hands covering his throat, he fell down and breathed his last. The island lord is dead. Quickly run. The pirates of the Azure Dragon Island immediately screamed in fright. However, how could they escape from the pursuit of Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian? Soon, only Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian were left in the sky above the sea. The pirates of the Azure Dragon Island had fallen into the sea below after their deaths. They had committed crimes in this sea region, and their corpses had become food for the demonic beasts in this sea region. This was their retribution. Exterminating the pirates of the Azure Dragon Island was only a small interlude. Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian continued on their journey. 5 days later, the two of them returned to the land of the East Divine Continent. Then, they headed to the nearest empire and borrowed the teleportation formation. On the 16th of October, the two of them returned to the Shui Feng Empire Academy. Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian each handed 4 eternity flowers to the academy and received 20,000 merit points. After receiving the merit points, the first thing Yi Xing did was to head to the Shui Feng Palace to learn a supreme-grade spiritual martial art. After a round of comparison, Yi Xing chose 2 supreme-grade spiritual martial arts. One was a fist art, Great Sun-Burning Sky Fist. The other was an archery art, Black Flame Arrow Art. These 2 supreme-grade spiritual martial arts were of the fire attribute. Yi Xing mainly used the fire attribute astrology in battle. Clearly, it was very suitable for Yi Xing. Furthermore, the Black Flame Arrow Art also had the darkness attribute. This was also the attribute domain that Yi Xing specialized in. The Wind Shadow Spear art was fast, but its attack power was slightly weaker. If it encountered someone with a strong defense, no matter how fast it was, it might not be able to break through the opponent's defense. The Great Sun-Burning Sky Fist was powerful and imposing. It relied on pure strength to crush the opponent. If the opponent's defense was strong, it could rely on the Great Sun-Burning Sky Fist to win. The Black Flame Arrow Art's archery power was needless to say. Especially when combined with the Sagittarius constellation, it was incomparably terrifying. It was the existence of a trump card. After mastering these 3 supreme-grade spiritual martial arts, Yi Xing believed that he would definitely obtain first place in the 3rd Genius Selection competition. Chapter 547. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, half a month had passed since Yi Xing returned to the Blood Blade Academy. Yi Xing's heart force had reached the 6th level, and his cultivation speed was twice as fast as when he was at the 5th level. In half a month's time, his sky-burning sun fist and black flame arrow art had both reached perfection. His attainment was not inferior to the wind shadow spear art. For other exalted realm cultivators, even half-step honorable realm cultivators, this cultivation speed could be considered godly. However, Yi Xing's heart force and comprehension of the heaven and earth's momentum were deeper than the average honorable realm cultivator. Of course, it was easy for him to cultivate a supreme-grade spiritual martial art. It was only a little difficult for him to break through to the transcendent realm. Breaking through to the transcendent realm requires an opportunity. It's hard to reach this step by cultivating diligently. It seems that I have to temper myself in battle. Moreover, my cultivation is still too low. Only a 7th-level astral realm cultivator can cultivate a supreme-grade spiritual martial art to the transcendent realm. The lower the cultivation, the greater the restriction on martial arts. It seems that I have to raise my cultivation even higher. Yi Xing thought to himself. There were less than 2 months until the 3rd Genius Selection. If he could break through to the 8-star realm, then his chances of winning would be greater. If he wanted to break through to the 8-star realm, the cultivation tower was the best place to go. With Yi Xing's strength, he should be able to reach the highest level of the cultivation tower. Every level of the cultivation tower increased the concentration of astral chi by 20%. The higher the level, the higher the concentration of astral chi, and the faster the cultivation speed. On this day, Yi Xing arrived at the 9th level of the cultivation tower. There were 2 cultivation rooms here. There was a student token hanging at the entrance of each room. The one on the left had Zixian written on it, and the one on the right had Mo Yi written on it. This meant that the 2 cultivation rooms were already occupied. To encourage competition between students, the cultivation tower's rule was that whoever was stronger could occupy the better cultivation room and challenge others at will. Of course, the prerequisite was that one had enough merit points. Different levels meant different cultivation speeds, and the number of merit points required was also different. The first level required 5 merit points a day, and each level required 5 more merit points. Cultivating on the 9th level for a day required 45 merit points. Yixing looked at the 2 student tokens. Of course, he wouldn't disturb Wei Qingxian. He walked towards the cultivation room on the right. Mo Yi, a venerable 9-star, was the number 1 student of the Blood Edge Empire Academy. His strength was at the peak of the venerable 9-star level. Yixing arrived outside Mo Ye's cultivation room and knocked on the door. "Who?" An angry roar suddenly came from the room. "Who dares to disturb my cultivation?" As the number 1 student and a core member of the imperial family, Mo Yi was an absolute tyrant in the Blood Edge Academy. Everyone knew that Mo Yi had been cultivating in seclusion recently. He wanted to reach the half-step honorable realm as soon as possible so that he could graduate from the academy and search for an opportunity to break through to the honorable realm. Mo Yi coldly snorted. Someone actually dared to disturb his cultivation at this time. This person must have eaten a leopard's guts. Yixing stood outside the door and said, "Senior brother Mo Yi, Junior Yixing is here to challenge you." A terrifying aura came from the cultivation room. Mo Yi shouted, "You dare to challenge me? How dare you? Do you want to die?" Yixing slightly frowned and said, "You talk too much nonsense. If you dare to accept the challenge, then come out. If not, then scram." Yixing's principle was to be polite to the opponent first. If the opponent was polite to him, then he would continue to be polite. If the opponent wasn't polite, then sorry, he wouldn't be polite either. The cultivation room's door opened, and the terrifying aura suddenly became stronger. A tall young man walked out. Mo Yi glanced at Yixing and said, "Yixing, right? I've heard of your name. You have guts. However, don't think that you can be arrogant in front of me just because you defeated Mo Tong. You're not qualified." Yixing smiled and said, "Whether I'm qualified or not depends on my strength, not how good my mouth is." Mo Yi angrily snorted and said, "Fine, I'll see how much strength you've grown in this year." As he spoke, Mo Yi punched out at Yixing whoosh. As soon as the fist moved, a fierce fist wind shot out with a terrifying aura. The void trembled as Mo Ye's fist force stirred up waves of air. As for Mo Ye's fist, it bloomed with light and exploded the air. In an instant, it arrived in front of Yixing with a terrifying flame. Yixing's heart skipped a beat. The martial art that Mo Yi used was the supreme-grade spiritual martial art that he had recently cultivated, the Sky-Burning Sun Fist. However, Mo Ye's attainment in the Sky-Burning Sun Fist was far inferior to Yixing's. It was only at the greater success stage. Flaming Dipper Fist. In a hurry, Yixing swung his fist and used the transformative stage upper-grade spiritual martial art, the Flaming Dipper Fist. The transformative stage attainment was superb. No matter how short the time was, it was still natural for him to use it. It was not weak at all. Bang! The 2 fists collided and made a loud explosion. The 2 fists exploded and sparks flew everywhere. In terms of astral strength, Yixing was inferior to Mo Yi, who was at the 9th stage of the astral stage. However, in terms of understanding the force of fire, Yixing was superior. Moreover, the power of their martial arts were equal. However, Yixing had the advantage in terms of physical strength. Therefore, in this collision, Yixing, the 7-star venerable, had the upper hand. Yixing did not even take half a step back. He was completely fine. However, Mo Yi felt a terrifying force coming at him. His body shook and he could not help but take a step back. Mo Yi was shocked. He did not expect Yixing's strength to grow so quickly. In the first half of the year, Yixing could only defeat Mo Tong, who was at the 7-star venerable level. Now, he had reached a level where even Mo Yi, the number 1 student among the 9-star venerables, was at a disadvantage. Whoosh! Mo Yi immediately used his fire celestial aspect, which made the Sky-Burning Sun Fist even more powerful. Yixing also channeled the power of the fire astral aspect. The extreme level of the fire astral aspect completely suppressed his opponent. Boom! Yixing also used the sky-burning sun fist. However, in terms of momentum and power, Yixing's sky-burning sun fist was superior. His attainment in the sky-burning sun fist is higher than mine. How is this possible? The two fists collided and Mo Yi was forced back. His eyes were full of shock. Bang! In just 10 moves, Mo Yi missed a move. Yixing's fist landed on his chest and sent him flying. He crashed into the wall of the 9th floor. Mo Yi spat out a mouthful of blood. He had lost. Yixing did not look at Mo Yi again. He placed the student token in a groove outside the cultivation room and entered it. Chapter 548. After closing the door, Yixing sat cross-legged on the cultivation platform in the center of the cultivation room. He began to cultivate with the falling star incantation. The astral spiritual qi in the cultivation room on the 9th floor was extremely dense. As soon as the falling star incantation was activated, a huge amount of astral spiritual qi was absorbed into Yixing's body. His cultivation speed was almost twice as fast as normal. This meant that cultivating here for a day was equivalent to cultivating outside for 3 days. This greatly increased his cultivation speed. A steady stream of astral spiritual qi was absorbed into Yixing's body. It flowed through his meridians and finally gathered in his Dantian's stellar vortex. Like a black hole, the star vortex in Yixing's Dantian spun slowly. No matter how much star spiritual energy flowed into the star vortex in his Dantian, it would be refined and absorbed at the first moment. Yixing's cultivation base was growing rapidly. Moreover, his attainment in the falling star incantation was also slowly improving. Even the top student, Mo Yi, was defeated by Yixing naturally. No one dared to challenge Yixing in this cultivation room. He cultivated in peace. Time flowed like water. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Yixing's falling star incantation had a qualitative breakthrough. It had reached the 7th stage of perfection. The strength of his stellar energy had also improved. At this time, Yixing's stellar energy was probably not inferior to venerable 9 stars. Yixing's cultivation had also increased greatly in this half a month. He had already reached the late 7th stage and was not far from the peak. In the cultivation room, Yixing sat on the cultivation platform and continued to cultivate. With the 7th stage of the falling star incantation, Yixing's cultivation speed was even faster. He was rapidly approaching the peak of the 7th stage. While cultivating, the stellar energy of the 7th stage of the falling star incantation was also transforming into the stellar energy of the black rank inferior falling star incantation. Theoretically speaking, the 7th stage of the spirit grade supreme grade meteor fall incantation was almost equivalent to the 3rd stage of the mystic low grade meteor fall incantation. However, the mystic grade was still the mystic grade. Even if the grade was the same, if the transformation was successful, the strength of the astral energy would not change much, but the toughness of the astral energy would increase by a lot, allowing the user to fight longer and have more explosive power. Furthermore, the cultivation speed of the low-grade profound martial art was definitely faster than the top-grade spiritual martial art. Half a month passed quickly. Yixing's cultivation had finally reached the peak of level 7. He was only 1 step away from becoming an 8-star venerable. Of course, this step was not so easy to break through. There was less than a month left until the 3rd genius selection. Even if he was on the 9th floor of the cultivation tower, it would still be difficult to break through in such a short amount of time. Yixing stopped cultivating. At this moment, the astral energy in his body had already been converted to the low-grade profound rank falling star incantation and was about 70 to 80% complete. After exiting the cultivation tower, Yixing discovered that the student token outside the cultivation tower had become Mo Yi's. Yixing knew of Wei Qingxuan's strength. Although Mo Yi was the #1 student, he might not be able to defeat her. It seemed like she had broken through to the 8th stage of the astral energy realm and left the cultivation tower on her own accord. Yixing's guess was correct. When he returned to the 7th pavilion, he saw Wei Qingxian. Wei Qingxian was indeed an 8-star venerable. Wei Qingxuan's cultivation had no bottlenecks. She could break through any stage naturally. In terms of cultivation talent, she was indeed much more talented than Yi Xing. Seeing Yi Xing, Wei Qingxian revealed a sweet smile. After greeting him, she secretly sent a voice transmission. There are only 20 days left until the third genius selection. I plan to return to the Dark Star sect to consolidate my attainments in the Dark Star spiritual body. Are you coming? Of course I'm going. Yi Xing replied with a nod. Yi Xing's Dark Star spiritual body was already at the Great Perfection Realm. However, it had not reached the Great Perfection Realm. The Great Perfection Realm was the limit of the Dark Star spiritual body. Right now, Yi Xing's physical strength was slightly stronger than an 8-star venerable. However, it was slightly weaker than a 9-star venerable. He needed to use his astral energy to fight a 9-star venerable. From an 8-star venerable to a half-step venerable, Yi Xing's Dark Star spiritual body still had a lot of room for improvement. As for Wei Qingxuan's Dark Star spiritual body, it had not reached the Great Perfection Realm. It was only at the peak of the Great Perfection Realm. Unlike Yi Xing, Wei Qingxian didn't have the black hole astrology and could absorb the dark astral energy limitlessly. Therefore, although she had cultivated the dark astral spirit body longer than Yi Xing, her attainments were lower. When are we going? Wei Qingxian sent a voice transmission. Let's go tomorrow morning. I have something to do today. Yi Xing sent a voice transmission. Wei Qingxian nodded and confirmed the time. Yi Xing put up the "Do Not Disturb" sign and entered the 7th pavilion. When he returned to his residence, he took out the remaining Tier 12 spiritual corpse jade. Yi Xing was only one step away from the Astral 8 stage. If he slowly absorbed the astral energy, it would take a long time. However, the pure astral energy in the Tier 12 spiritual corpse jade was of high quality. It was enough to replace the astral energy needed to break through to the Astral 8 stage. If he directly absorbed the corpse jade, his cultivation would naturally break through to the Astral 8 stage. Yi Xing now had a 5-star green destiny. There was no cultivation bottleneck in the Astral 8 stage. As long as he accumulated enough energy, it would not be difficult for him to break through to the Astral 8 stage. Yi Xing sat cross-legged, holding the 12th grade spiritual grade corpse jade in his hand. The incomparably pure star energy flowed through his meridians and into the star vortex in his dantian. Yi Xing quickly refined and absorbed it. Compared to the 9th floor of the cultivation pagoda, directly absorbing the Tier 12 spiritual corpse jade to cultivate was dozens of times faster. As time passed, the number of corpse jades in Yi Xing's hand gradually decreased. However, Yi Xing's cultivation was gradually approaching the Astral 8 stage. The gap between them was getting smaller and smaller. He sat there for 20 hours. Day turned to night, and night turned to dawn. A surging aura suddenly emitted from the 7th pavilion. Yi Xing's cultivation soared, and there was a qualitative change at this moment. It was a natural breakthrough to the Astral 8 stage. I wonder what realm the young genius with the highest cultivation has reached in this year's genius selection. There shouldn't be anyone below the age of 25 who can step into the honorable realm. Now that I'm an 8-star venerable, I have the black hole astrology and the Sagittarius astrology as my trump cards. I guess there won't be anyone below the honorable realm who can defeat me. Yi Xing thought to himself. As an 8-star venerable, Yi Xing was full of confidence for this year's genius selection. However, the Deyuan dynasty is the only dynasty that rules the starry continent. As a 3-star power, there will be endless geniuses in the younger generation. The younger generation of the other empires can't be compared to them. I can challenge those of a higher level, and so can other geniuses. I can't underestimate others. Yi Xing was not arrogant. Chapter 549. My goal for this year's selection is to become the son of the stars. I need to be strong enough to defeat all the other geniuses in the younger generation. The stronger I am, the better. Inside the Dark Astral Treasure Pagoda, I can increase the strength of my physical body. Furthermore, I can also use the battles in the Dark Astral Treasure Pagoda to cultivate a few top-grade spiritual martial arts to the transformation realm. That way, my chances of winning will be higher. Yi Xing's lips curled up into a smile as he thought about it. Yi Xing sealed his cultivation at the 7th level of the astral realm. This was a cultivation sealing technique he learned from Yi Xingkong's storage ring. Before arriving at the Starry Sky Arena, Yi Xing didn't want the Great Yuan dynasty to know that his cultivation had reached the 8th level of the astral realm. Right now, the younger generation of the East Divine Continent should all be at the 7th level of the astral realm. Yi Xing was the same as them, so naturally he wouldn't attract the attention of the Great Yuan dynasty. Yi Xing let out a long sigh, feeling refreshed as he walked out of the 7th pavilion. At this moment, the eastern horizon was starting to brighten. A new day had arrived. Looking at the first glimmer of dawn, Yi Xing's heart was filled with joy. He felt as if he was the light of dawn, finally breaking through the darkness and welcoming the light. All this time, Yi Xing had been afraid of exposing his Black Hole constellation and Sagittarius constellation. He didn't dare to use these trump cards in public. But in the 3rd selection, his identity as the Fiend Star of Chaos would be exposed. He would be listed as a must-kill by the Great Yuan dynasty. Why would Yi Xing be afraid of hiding his secret? If there was a need, Yi Xing would definitely use his trump cards in the Grand Arena. No one would be able to stop him from becoming the #1 ranker on the Destiny rankings and becoming a Son of the Stars. Early in the morning, the principal of the Blood Edge Academy, Exalted Lord Mo Jian, came to the 7th peak and brought away Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian. Nominally, Honorable Mo Jian was going to bring the two of them for secret training. But in reality, he was going to send them to the Grand Hall of the Grand Canyon in the depths of the Academy's backyard, so that they could head to the Dark Star sect. This trip could take up to 10 days or even half a month. The 3rd Genius tryouts were about to begin in 20 days. At this time, Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian were both key figures in the competition. They would attract a lot of attention, and their sudden disappearance would definitely arouse suspicion. If it was revered Lord Mo Jian who brought the two of them for secret training, then the two of them could reasonably disappear for a period of time. Exalt Mo Jian brought the two of them to the Grand Hall of the Canyon. The Black Biao King was already waiting for them inside. He knew that Yi Xing would return to the Dark Star sect before the 3rd Genius selection. Brother He Biao. Sir Emissary. Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian arrived in front of the Black Biao King and cupped their fists in greeting. The Black Tiger King nodded at the two of them and said, "Let's go. The Dark Star Pagoda will be for the two of you to cultivate for the next few days. Try to raise your strength to the peak before the Genius tryouts." The Black Biao King led the two of them to the back of the Grand Hall and activated the teleportation portal. Soon, they arrived at the teleportation hall of the Dark Star sect. After exiting the teleportation hall, the three of them went straight to the Dark Star Pagoda. Sir Emissary. Outside the Dark Star Pagoda, Zhou Kunshan saw the Black Biao King and quickly bowed. The Black Biao King nodded. Seeing that the pagoda door was closed, he asked, "Who's inside now?" Zhou Kunshan said, "It's the right emissary's disciple, Shimin Zhu." The Dark Star sect had 2 great emissaries, 4 great law kings, and 7 great elders. All of them were Star Sea Realm kings. Among them, the Black Biao King was the left emissary, and the right emissary was Shimin Manqing, also known as King Manqing. The Zhua clan of the Dark Star sect's leader and the Shimin clan of the right emissary were the 2 most powerful clans in the Dark Star sect. Among them, the Zhua clan was passed down from the founder of the Dark Star sect, Zhua Hongyuan, while the Shimin clan was passed down from Zhua Hongyuan's eldest disciple, Shimin Ji. The Dark Star sect had been passed down for almost 2,000 years. The Zhua clan and the Shimin clan had developed to become extremely powerful. The 2 great emissaries, the 4 great law kings, and the 7 great elders occupied more than half of the upper echelons of the sect. Among them, the sect leader, Zhua Xinglong, was the descendant of Zhua Hongyuan and the current head of the Zhua clan. The experts of the other clans combined only occupied a small portion of the upper echelons of the sect. The ancestor of the Shimin clan was the eldest disciple of the founder, Zhua Hongyuan. The Shimin clan and the Zhua clan had a close relationship. Together, they had the right to speak in the Dark Star sect. The Black Biao King and King Manqing, the 2 great emissaries, did not have a harmonious relationship. The Shimin clan, which had the right to speak in the sect, looked down on the weaker clans. Just like the Meng clan of the Deyuan dynasty, which looked down on the Meng clan's side branches, the Deyuan royal clan had a hierarchy. It was the same for the Dark Star sect. The Shimin clan only thought that the Zhou clan and the Shimin clan were the main branches. The other clans were only side branches at best. Even though the Black Biao King was a 3-star king and was extremely powerful, he could not dominate the Dark Star sect and be ostracized by the right emissary, King Manqing. How long has it been since Shimin Zhu went in? The Black Biao King asked. Not long ago. Less than an hour ago, Zhou Kunshan said. Get him out. I will be in charge of the Dark Star Pagoda for the rest of the time. The disciples of the sect are not allowed to enter for now, the Black Biao King said. Shimin Zhu was a 4-star venerable. With his strength, he could stay in the Dark Star Pagoda for a few days without a problem. However, Yixing and Wei Qingxian did not have much time. There were less than 20 days before the third genius selection would begin. Time was of the essence. The Black Biao King did not care who was cultivating in the Dark Star Pagoda. Regardless of who it was, they would have to make way for now. There was no difference in waiting for half a month. Zhou Kunshan did not dare to disobey the Black Biao King's order. He controlled the Dark Star Pagoda and forced Shimin Zhu out. Zhou Kunshan, what are you doing? Why are you forcing me out of the Dark Star Pagoda? Shimin Zhu was furious. He pointed at Zhou Kunshan and shouted. Although Zhou Kunshan was a high-level astral-reaching realm master, and Shimin Zhu was only a 4-star venerable, as the disciple of Manqing King, his position was higher than Zhou Kunshan's. Shimin Zhu was not an ordinary disciple of Manqing King, but a true disciple. Moreover, he was a 9-star green life disciple. His talent was astonishing. In the future, he would at least become a half-step king, or even a king. He had great potential and was also a core disciple of the Shimin family. His position in the Dark Star sect was naturally not ordinary. It was not something Zhou Kunshan could compare with. Zhou Kunshan did not respond to Shimin Zhu, but looked at the Black Biao King. The Black Biao King said, In this half a month, I will take the Dark Star Pagoda. Shimin Zhu, you can come back to cultivate after a while. Shimin Zhu saw the Black Biao King, and his expression turned serious. He did not dare to act rashly. However, he did not really respect the Black Biao King in his heart. Shimin Zhu said, Sir Star Emissary, even if you are the left star emissary of our sect, you cannot take the Dark Star Pagoda by force. It is not like the Dark Star Pagoda is your personal property. Why can't you let me cultivate it? Make up for the first update on the 10th. Brothers, I am far behind in monthly votes. Please give me a monthly vote to calm my nerves and ignite my passion. Tomorrow I will explode. Make up for yesterday's second update, and then return all the monthly votes. Chapter 550. The Black Biao King glanced at Shimin Zhu and said, I want to occupy the Dark Star Pagoda for half a month. Do you have a problem with that? Although the Black Biao King was ostracized by the Shimin clan, that was only because of the right emissary King Manqing. The rest of the Shimin clan didn't have the right to ostracize the Black Biao King. As for Shimin Zhu, he didn't even have the right to talk to the Black Biao King. The Black Biao King retorted and released his king's aura. Shimin Zhu felt like the world was spinning, as if the sky was falling down. Dong dong dong, just a trace of king's aura was enough to push Shimin Zhu back. After retreating 10 steps and waiting for the Black Biao King to disperse the king's aura, Shimin Zhu finally stopped with fear in his eyes. Shimin Zhu said, Lord Emissary, as a king, how is bullying a junior like me a heroic act? I will definitely tell my master about today's matter and ask him to make a judgment. The Black Biao King said, Then go now. I will be here for half a month. King Manqing can come and make a judgment at any time. The Black Biao King was a 3-star king and the strongest in the Dark Star sect. Although King Manqing was also an emissary, he was only a 2-star king. King Manqing used his clan's power to ostracize the Black Biao King, but in reality, the Black Biao King didn't care about King Manqing at all. Not to mention King Manqing, even the Dark Star sect's leader, Zhuo Xinglong, could only comfort the Black Biao King. At the Black Biao King's level, who in the entire star continent could suppress him? He usually didn't fight with King Manqing because he didn't want to lower himself to the Black Biao King's level. Now, he wanted to nurture the Demon Star of Chaos, so he only needed to occupy the Dark Star Pagoda for 10 days to half a month. If anyone still dared to complain in front of him, the Black Biao King would tyrannically crush them, no matter who they were. Shimanju snorted. He didn't dare to anger the Black Biao King's strength. He looked at Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian. When his gaze landed on Wei Qingxian, he immediately ignored Yi Xing's shock filled his eyes. It was the first time he, Shimanju, had seen such a beautiful woman. However, even though Shimanju was young, he was still a 4-star venerable. He would not lose his composure because of a woman. His expression quickly returned to normal, and he turned around to leave. Only one person can enter the Dark Star Pagoda to cultivate at a time. Which one of you will go in first? The Black Biao King said to Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian. To him, Shimanju was like air, and he did not care about her at all. Qingxian, you go first. If I go in, I will stay for a long time. You can go in and cultivate once, then come out and meditate. When I come out, you can go in and cultivate a second time, Yi Xing said. Then I'll go first. Wei Qingxian nodded. Wei Qingxian entered the Dark Star Pagoda, and the pagoda door immediately closed. Yi Xing withdrew his gaze and said, Brother Black Biao, thank you. The Black Biao King's expression was normal and he said, What's there to thank me for? Yi Xing said, The Dark Star Pagoda is the treasure of the Dark Star sect, and I am not a disciple of the Dark Star sect. Brother Black Biao, because of me and Qingxian, you don't allow disciples of the sect to cultivate in the Dark Star Pagoda. This will definitely make many people unhappy. The Black Biao King said indifferently, If they're unhappy, then they're unhappy. I don't care. My contributions to the sect can't be compared to a dozen days of cultivation in the Dark Star Pagoda. Don't worry about them. Yi Xing nodded. Some words did not need to be said. Even though the Black Biao King did not care about other people's opinions, Yi Xing was still very grateful. The Dark Star Spirit Body was the initial part of a divine-grade body-tempering cultivation method. It was definitely an extremely precious treasure in the Dark Star sect, and it was not something ordinary disciples could cultivate. However, the Black Biao King brought Yi Xing here to cultivate, and he did not make Yi Xing make any promises or swear any oaths. Yi Xing was clear that this matter was probably not agreed by every upper echelon of the Dark Star sect. The Black Biao King must have suffered a lot of pressure because of this matter. Wei Qingxian had not returned to the Dark Star Pagoda to cultivate her Dark Star Spirit Body for a year. However, in this 1 year, she had been cultivating body tempering and strengthening her physical body. This time, her Dark Star Spirit Body would definitely have a big breakthrough. She would have to stay in the Dark Star Pagoda for at least a day. The Black Biao King stood like a mountain, no longer speaking. Yi Xing sat on the ground beside him, continuing to cultivate the Falling Star incantation, completely transforming his astral stars into the profound grade Falling Star incantation's astral stars. Not long after, Shimanju returned, following behind an old woman who looked to be about 60 years old. This old woman was the right emissary of the Dark Star sect, the famous King Manqing. Black Biao. As soon as King Manqing arrived, he angrily shouted, "A dignified emissary, a Star Sea Realm king, bullying a junior venerable. Do you have any shame?" Although the Black Biao King and King Manqing were both emissaries, because he did not care about power and had no interest in the sect's affairs, he basically did not care about the sect's affairs. As long as the sect leader did not say anything, King Manqing, the right emissary, had the final say in the Dark Star sect's affairs. However, today, the Black Biao King forced King Manqing's disciple out of the Dark Star Pagoda just to let an outsider cultivate. When King Manqing heard this, it was simply heaven-defying. The Black Biao King looked at King Manqing, his aura not inferior in the slightest. He said, "You also know that I am a dignified emissary, a Star Sea Realm king. This king wants to occupy the Dark Star Pagoda for half a month. Your disciple should make way, right? Could it be that your disciple's reputation is greater than mine, A star emissary and a king? Shimanju said behind King Manqing, Lord Left Emissary, if you wanted to enter the Dark Star Pagoda to cultivate, I would of course let you in immediately without any complaints. However, Lord Left Emissary stopped me from cultivating and let an outsider enter the Dark Star Pagoda. This makes it difficult for me to swallow this anger. King Manqing chuckled and said, Black Biao, did you hear that? It's not that my disciple doesn't know the rules, it's that you've gone too far. The Dark Star Spirit Body is a priceless treasure of our sect. There has never been a precedent of it being passed on to outsiders. You let an outsider in to cultivate. This is a guarantee with your life, so it's fine. However, you can't stop my disciple from cultivating because of an outsider. Everything has to be done in order. Immediately let the person in the pagoda out. After my disciple finishes cultivating, he will have the right to enter the Dark Star Pagoda to cultivate. Yixing, who was cultivating on the side, opened his eyes. It turned out that the reason he could enter the Dark Star Pagoda to cultivate the Dark Star Spirit Body was because the Black Biao King had used his life to guarantee to the upper echelons of the Dark Star sect. This made Yixing feel deeply moved. King Manqing's words were not without reason. However, this reason depended on who he was talking to. The Black Biao King was a dignified left emissary, a Star Sea Realm King. It was because he was pressed for time that he wanted to occupy the Dark Star Pagoda. It was not wrong for Shimanju to make way. What King Manqing said was reasonable, but his tone was forceful. He was using reason to oppress others. Chapter 551. The hierarchy of the Dark Star sect was higher than the emissaries were higher than the Dharma Kings, and the Dharma Kings were higher than the elders. As the left emissary, the Dark Star sect's leader was the only one who had a higher position than him. King Manqing was at most his equal. Furthermore, although the two emissaries were of the same rank in name, ever since the establishment of the Dark Star sect, the left emissary with a higher cultivation level had always been placed in the position of the left emissary. Every generation of the left emissary had always been superior to the right emissary. However, this generation was an exception. King Manqing was originally the left emissary, and the previous generations of left emissaries all came from the Shiman clan. More than 100 years ago, the right emissary died of old age, and the Black Tiger King, who was an elder, was promoted to the position of emissary. King Manqing was a 2-star king, and the Black Tiger King was a 3-star king. According to the precedent of the left emissary being the one with the higher cultivation, the Black Tiger King became the left emissary, and King Manqing became the right emissary. King Manqing was the current leader of the Shiman clan, and had once been the left emissary. How could she allow the Black Tiger King to be above her? Naturally, she opposed the Black Tiger King at every turn. The Black Tiger King wasn't interested in politics. Furthermore, the Shiman clan was powerful. Unless he used force, he couldn't win against King Manqing. After becoming the left emissary, the Black Tiger King spent most of his time traveling and doing practical things. He had a high reputation among the Dark Star sect members. Shimanju was only a disciple of the Dark Star sect, and the Black Tiger King was the Dark Star sect's left emissary. Regardless of martial cultivation, their status in the sect was worlds apart. The second in command of the sect wanted to occupy the Dark Star Pagoda, and Shimanju, a junior disciple, had to make way for him. It was only natural. However, Shimanju was still brooding. It was clear that he had no respect for the Black Tiger King. Shimanju alone didn't dare to be disrespectful to the Black Biao King. The reason why Shimanju was disrespectful was naturally because his master, King Manqing, disdained the Black Biao King and suppressed him time and time again. Under the influence of his master, Shimanju naturally didn't care about the Black Biao King. From the fact that King Manqing stood up for Shimanju and came knocking on their door, it could be seen to what extent King Manqing suppressed the Black Biao King. With the Black Biao King's status, not to mention delaying Shimanju from entering the Dark Astral Pagoda for half a month, even slapping Shimanju would not be a big deal. However, seeing that the Black Biao King had no intention of backing down, King Manqing could not order the Black Biao King around. Her gaze swept towards Zhou Kunshan, and she shouted, "Zhou Kunshan, open the dark astral pagoda and let the people inside come out." This. Zhou Kunshan looked at the Black Biao King with a troubled expression, and was in a dilemma. This was truly a fight between immortals, and mortals suffered. No matter who Zhou Kunshan listened to, it would not end well for him. The Black Biao King waved at Zhou Kunshan, "You, come here." Zhou Kunshan walked over, and the Black Biao King chopped down with his palm, striking the back of Zhou Kunshan's neck. Zhou Kunshan immediately fainted on the ground. The Black Biao King knew that Zhou Kunshan was in a dilemma, so he directly knocked him out. If he did not open the dark astral pagoda, King Manqing could not blame Zhou Kunshan. King Manqing thought that the Black Biao King would give in and let Zhou Kunshan open the dark astral pagoda. Who would have thought that the Black Biao King would directly knock Zhou Kunshan out? Her anger rose with a whoosh. King Manqing angrily shouted, Good Black Biao, you must have eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's gall today. Are you determined to go against this old one?" The Black Biao King said indifferently, "King Manqing, one should know when to stop. I gave you face, so you have to cherish it. Don't be shameless. What right do you have to yell in front of this king?" A person's emotions were closely related to their heart. From another perspective, if the Black Biao King treated King Manqing like how King Manqing treated him, King Manqing would have long been fuming with anger. However, the Black Biao King had always been calm and did not take King Manqing's suppression to heart. Today, the Black Biao King had only gone against her once, and King Manqing was already extremely angry. There was a big difference between a petty person and a free and easy person. King Manqing's face was completely ashen as he said angrily, "You're rebelling. Black Biao, you're really rebelling. You think that everything will be fine after knocking Zhou Kunshan out? This old one will personally kick the person in the pagoda out." As he spoke, King Manqing slapped towards the dark astral pagoda. How terrifying was the attack of a king! King Manqing wanted to forcefully shake the person in the pagoda out. If that was the case, the person in the pagoda would definitely be severely injured. To those who like to watch movies, I recommend a good movie, Journey to the West, The Return of the Great Sage. It's a domestic animated movie, a work of conscience. Chocolate went to the cinema to watch it twice. It's very good. If you're interested, you can go and watch it when you have time. Chapter 552. The Black Biao King's figure flashed, and he arrived in front of the Dark Star Pagoda, striking out with his palm. The void in front of him shook, and the air suddenly compressed like a wall, turning into heavy waves that rolled back. Bang! With a crisp sound, the palm print that King Manqing sent out was instantly shattered. The shock wave that swept out like a gale was extremely terrifying. King Manqing's body shook, and his expression changed as he involuntarily retreated a dozen steps. Shimen Zhu, who was beside King Manqing, let out a miserable groan as he was sent flying by the palm wind. In an instant he flew 1,000 meters away, spitting out a mouthful of blood in the air. The aura on the Black Biao King's body rose again, forming an invisible aura that changed the color of the sky. The gale swept out, forming a huge vortex in the clouds. In the center of the vortex, thunder roared and lightning flashed. The terrifying aura was appalling. The Black Biao King was furious. He was seething with anger. King Manqing had actually forcefully attacked, wanting to blast out the person in the Dark Star Pagoda. He didn't care about the life or death of the person in the pagoda, and this completely infuriated the Black Biao King. The Black Biao King was enraged, and his king's aura completely erupted. All the martial artists in the Dark Star sect felt their hearts tremble, and they felt an inexplicable panic. They all looked in the direction of the Dark Star Pagoda. Just looking at the vortex in the sky, the martial artists of the Dark Star sect all paled. What kind of powerful cultivator was able to create such a terrifying phenomenon? The Black Biao King glared angrily at King Manqing and shouted, "Shimen Manqing, you old hag, this king has retreated time and time again. Do you really think this king is afraid of you? If you dare to attack again, don't think that this king won't cut you down just because you're an old hag. Come on." As the Black Biao King roared, His aura increased, and a gale swept through the sky. The vortex spun even more terrifyingly, and that terrifying aura pressed down. Even though King Manqing was a 2-star king, he still found it difficult to breathe, as if a mountain was pressing down on his body. This time, the Black Biao King was truly enraged. He completely turned hostile and no longer backed down. He directly called King Manqing by her name, and even called her an old hag. Since she didn't want face, the Black Biao King wouldn't give her any more face. King Manqing trembled in anger. The Black Biao King's ruckus had attracted the attention of all the cultivators of the Dark Star Church. Ximen Manqing had been a star emissary for hundreds of years. She was a 2-star king, and even the Dark Star sect leader had to respect her. Yet today, someone had called her by her name, and even called her an old granny. Most importantly, the Black Tiger King's roar had been heard by countless Dark Star sects martial practitioners. This was truly a great loss of face for her. However, the Black Biao King had actually erupted with such a terrifying aura. Even Manqing King was apprehensive. She could only use her aura to suppress the Black Biao King. In terms of strength, how could a 2-star king like her be a match for a 3-star king like the Black Biao King? If they were to really fight, then the one to suffer would be her, Ximen Manqing. Thus, King Manqing was unable to do anything about the Black Biao King's rage. King Manqing pointed at the Black Biao King, his finger trembling from anger. He angrily said, "Black Biao, you dare to be so disrespectful to me? You've gone against the heavens. I'll report this matter to the sect leader and have him punish you." The Black Biao King had suppressed his anger for a long time. In the past, he had taken into consideration King Manqing's face. After all, the other party had some friendship with his master. However, King Manqing had always refused to give face. Now that they had completely fallen out, the Black Biao King's heart was free and at ease. The Black Biao King said, "Old Granny, go ahead and report. Even if the sect leader comes, this king will still occupy this Dark Star Pagoda for half a month." The Black Biao King's voice was loud and clear. He knew that the Dark Star sect leader had already come. This time, he had made it clear that no one could stop him. "Junior brother, why do you have to make such a ruckus? Everyone knows that the left and right emissaries don't get along. You're making a fool of yourself in front of the sect's disciples." Although the Dark Star sect leader hadn't appeared, his voice was transmitted over. The left and right emissaries didn't get along well. As the sect leader, it wasn't easy for him to manage them. However, apart from him, who else could manage the battle between the left and right emissaries? He had to intervene to avoid embarrassment. The Dark Star sect leader naturally didn't appear and mediated in secret. The Dark Star sect leader had a love-hate relationship with the Black Biao King. When the Black Biao King was young, he had been taken in as a disciple by the previous Dark Star sect leader. At that time, Zhuo Xinglong was already a king. He had taken great care of this junior brother of his. Most of the time, Zhuo Xinglong had taught the Black Biao King many things on behalf of his master. However, the Black Biao King's aptitude was quite high. As his cultivation increased and almost caught up to his senior brother, Zhuo Xinglong's mentality changed. The Dark Star sect leader's position had always been passed down from generation to generation. However, there were exceptions where it was passed down to someone with a different surname. 1,000 years ago, there was a genius from the Ximen clan who was too monstrous. He had become a 3-star king before the age of 100 and was passed down to the sect leader. This sect leader had only been in the position for less than 100 years before he died in the battle with the Great Yuan dynasty. In this period of time, the Ximen clan had developed extremely quickly. They were almost a level higher than the Zhuo clan. If it wasn't for the sect leader's early death, the Ximen clan would have definitely become the #1 clan in the Dark Star sect. The sect leader's position would have been passed down from generation to generation. There were rumors that the sect leader of the Ximen clan had fallen into the trap of the Great Yuan dynasty because someone in the sect had purposely leaked his whereabouts. However, this rumor was absolutely forbidden in the Dark Star sect. If someone had purposely leaked his whereabouts, the biggest suspect would be the Zhuo clan. The Zhuo clan was the #1 clan in the Dark Star sect. They definitely wouldn't allow such a rumor to spread. However, it was better to prevent people from spreading it. With such a rumor circulating in the dark, the Zhuo clan couldn't stop it even if they wanted to. With the precedent of that genius from the Shimen clan becoming the sect leader, Zhuo Xinglong was worried that He Biao would surpass him and become the sect leader, treating He Biao as a competitor. Once He Biao became a competitor, the relationship between him and Zhuo Xinglong would naturally weaken. He Biao King had no intention of becoming the sect leader. The previous sect leader was also a member of the Zhuo clan. In the end, the sect leader's position still fell to Zhuo Xinglong. However, their relationship had broken down, and it was extremely difficult to restore it. Some of the things that had been done couldn't be ignored. Therefore, the sect leader of the Dark Star sect, Zhuo Xinglong, and He Biao had a brotherly relationship as well as some distant feelings. Ever since the two of them rose to high positions, they rarely communicated with each other. When the sect leader's voice sounded, Manqing King's eyes lit up. Before He Biao King could say anything, Manqing King had already said loudly, "Sect leader, He Biao is too lawless. Not only did he attack me, he also injured my disciple. He is so arrogant and reckless. Please punish him." I recommend A Novel Saint's Disciple. Book number 3508-147. It's a new fantasy novel by my good friend, Lonesome Reads South China. Brothers who are in the middle of a book can go take a look and see if it's your cup of tea. Chapter 553. The Black Biao King smiled faintly and said, "Sect leader, you've seen it yourself. For some people, the more you give in, the more they'll push their luck. I've had enough of this old woman. Since we've turned against each other today, I'll make it clear that no one can change anything. Even if you kick me out of the Dark Star sect, I'll still use the Dark Star Pagoda for half a month. Sect leader, with my contribution to the Dark Star sect, half a month's worth of cultivation rights should be enough, right?" Yi Xing, who wasn't far from the Black Biao King, suddenly felt his heart tremble. He felt a powerful aura lock onto him. It was as if an expert was sizing him up. The Dark Star sect leader's voice rang out again. "Junior brother, you're exaggerating. You're one of the pillars of the Dark Star sect, and I'm not crazy. Why would I kick you out of the Dark Star sect? However, that youth beside you is the chaotic era demon star you spoke of, right? You're a 3-star king and our star emissary. Is it worth it to fall out with the right star emissary for him?" The Black Biao King and Manqing King fell out because of Wei Qingxian in the pagoda, not because of Yi Xing. However, strictly speaking, it didn't make a difference whether it was Wei Qingxian or Yi Xing. It was only because Wei Qingxian was cultivating in the pagoda, and Yi Xing hadn't entered yet. The Black Biao King said, "This isn't a matter of whether it's worth it or not. It's just that this old woman has been showing off in front of me for the past 100 years. I merely saw that she was an old woman with one foot in the grave, so I didn't want to lower myself to her level. However, she took an inch and wanted a mile. I couldn't take it anymore, so there's no need to take it anymore. She's only a 2-star king, and her chi and blood are old. I can easily suppress her. What qualifications does she have to take advantage of her seniority and point fingers at me? If she still wants to step on my head, then I can only throw her down. If I don't hurt her, she won't know that I, the Black Biao King, am a 3-star king." Although the Black Pangolin King was speaking the truth, Manqing Monarch was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. She had always chosen to ignore the fact that the Black Pangolin King was a 3-star king, and had constantly proven that she was the number 2 figure of the Dark Star Church. Now, the Black Biao King had made it clear that he was a 3-star king, while King Manqing was only a 2-star king. She didn't have the qualifications to be mentioned in the same breath as him. This was simply a promotion to King Manqing's sore spot. This was precisely what she was unwilling to admit the most. As if his reverse scale had been touched, King Manqing flew into a rage and shouted, "Cult leader, listen to him, what is he saying?" "What did he say? I was already the left star emissary 400 years ago. Even if I moved to the position of the right star emissary later on, I am not someone who can be compared to him. Who does he think he is? How dare he bully me like this?" The Black Tiger King grunted coldly and said, "Old Granny, Since you look down on this king, then let's fight today and decide who's superior. Let's see exactly who's worth. Enough. The Dark Star cult leader's voice rang out, containing a trace of anger. He, the cult leader, had already stepped forward. If the two-star emissaries still fought, then it would show that he, the Dark Star cult leader, was incompetent. The Dark Star cult leader shouted, "The Dark Star Pagoda will be under the control of the Left Star emissary for the next half a month. No one is allowed to interfere." King Manqing was stunned. She thought she had misheard. Shocked, she asked, "Cult leader, what did you say?" The Dark Star cult leader's tone was very displeased. "Right Star emissary, you are a few hundred years older than us. You should be a person of virtue and prestige. Don't use your seniority to bully others. Moreover, the Left Star emissary is a 3-star king. How can she be bullied by you? Stop asking for trouble and go back. If you insist on being stubborn, then I won't interfere in today's matter. You can settle it in private. Don't bother me." As soon as he finished speaking, the Dark Star cult leader's aura disappeared. It was obvious that he had retreated. King Manqing wanted to use the Dark Star cult leader's power to attack the Black Panther King, but in the end, her wish fell through. If the Dark Star cult leader didn't interfere, she wouldn't dare to provoke the Black Panther King. If the Black Panther King suppressed her, then she would lose all her face and wouldn't be able to raise her head again. Pumph! King Manqing snorted angrily. She cursed the Black Panther King countless times in her heart. She even looked at Yi Xing with hatred. After giving him a fierce glare, she turned and left. Yi Xing was speechless. He hadn't even said a word to this old woman, but she gave him a fierce glare. How unlucky! King Manqing had retreated. The Black Panther King wanted to occupy the Dark Star Pagoda for half a month. Naturally, the remaining warriors of the Dark Star cult didn't dare to come to the Dark Star Pagoda. Soon the place quieted down. The Black Panther King stood like a mountain with an indifferent expression. He wasn't affected by King Manqing's disturbance. Yi Xing quickly calmed down and continued to cultivate the Falling Star incantation and transform Star Force. Not long after, Zhou Kunshan woke up. Seeing that the right emissary was gone, he knew that the right emissary had left. He thought that it was lucky that he was knocked out by the left emissary. Otherwise, if the right emissary hated him, his days would be difficult. After more than a day, Yi Xing's star force had been completely transformed. The 7th level of the Superior Spirit level Falling Star incantation had been successfully transformed into the 3rd level of the Inferior Profound level Falling Star incantation. Yi Xing still had the Inferior Profound level Falling Star incantation in his mind. He didn't need to worry about it before he reached the Star Sea realm. Although the 3rd level of the Inferior Profound level Falling Star incantation was comparable to the Superior Spirit level Falling Star incantation, the higher the level, the faster the cultivation. Even if there were other warriors who had cultivated the Superior Spirit level cultivation incantation to the Perfection realm when they were 8 stars venerated masters, their cultivation speed couldn't be compared to Yi Xing's. However, it wasn't easy to cultivate the Superior Spirit level cultivation incantation to the Perfection realm. Many 9 stars venerated masters might not be able to do it. Therefore, Yi Xing's cultivation speed was much faster than warriors of the same level. After Yi Xing's star force had been completely transformed, Wei Qingxian came out of the Dark Star Pagoda 4 hours later. Although she was a little tired, Wei Qingxian was very happy. She had benefited a lot in the Dark Star Pagoda this time. Her Dark Star incantation must have reached the Perfection realm, but she didn't know what level it had reached. From 6 stars venerated masters to half-step venerated masters, they all belonged to the Perfection realm of the Dark Star incantation. Currently, Yi Xing's physical strength was between 8 stars venerated masters and 9 stars venerated masters. He was already halfway to the Perfection realm. After Wei Qingxian came out of the Dark Star Pagoda, Yi Xing entered the pagoda and quickly arrived at the 4th floor. With Yi Xing's attainments in the Dark Star incantation, only the dark figures equivalent to 9 stars venerated masters or half-step venerated masters would have an effect on his Dark Star incantation. The dark figures on the 4th floor were all 6 stars venerated masters. With Yi Xing's dragon blood spear in hand, he killed everyone that came out. Add the second update on the 10th. It's Monday. Looking for recommendation tickets. Try to be more popular today. Chapter 554. Yi Xing was an exalted 8-star venerable, a perfect extreme spiritual martial artist, and 3 forces of heaven and earth as one. Even if he didn't use his astrology, he was still one of the top enlightened masters. Yi Xing kept killing. One shadow after another was destroyed by the dragon blood spear. Even the shadow equivalent to exalted 9-star venerable was no exception. It couldn't block Yi Xing's spear at all. Ever since Yi Xing killed the dark figure that was equivalent to the venerable 9 stars, his body had absorbed the dark star force that the dark figure had turned into after its collapse. His attainments in the dark star spirit body had continued to improve. As time passed, more and more shadow equivalent to exalted 9-star venerable died under the dragon blood spear. Yi Xing's body continued to strengthen, and his strength gradually increased. In the end, he reached the level of exalted 9-star. His powerful body gave Yi Xing the ability to fight for a long time. After an unknown period of time, a terrifying aura suddenly spread out from the 4th floor of the pagoda. A shadow equivalent to a half-step exalted appeared. A half-step exalted had the astral energy in his body strengthened to the extreme of the astral realm. He could also communicate with a trace of the universe's power. He was far stronger than exalted 9-star. Although he couldn't compare to a real exalted, a half-step exalted was still a exalted. He was extremely powerful. Boom! The half-step martial highness dark figure threw out a punch, causing the space in front of him to explode with a loud explosion. Yi Xing immediately felt a terrifying pressure. It was as if the void around him had become hard and was squeezing him. The power of a single punch had compressed the air into a wall. Even for an ordinary opponent, just the compression of the air would cause their body to explode and they would die. Just the pressure of the void was so terrifying. How powerful was this punch? It was even more shocking. Yi Xing immediately felt that it was difficult to move. He felt as if he had sunk into the ground. The void around him was like mud and sand, restricting his movements. Wind Shadow Spear Technique. Yi Xing couldn't dodge in time, so he stabbed out with his spear. In an instant, the spear shot out like a stream of light and stabbed out dozens of times. Bang 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 bang, the half-step venerable dark figure maintained the same punch. The astral spear in front of him was completely shattered by the punch. Yi Xing was startled as the dragon blood spear in his hand buzzed from the impact. Dong 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 dong. In the blink of an eye, Yi Xing retreated several dozen steps. The strength of a half-step martial highness was too terrifying. Without a strong attack power, it was useless if one only had a fast attack speed. A streak of starlight shot out from between Yi Xing's eyebrows, turning into a flaming star that hung high in the sky. The extreme level of the flame astral aspect was activated, and the terrifying astral power fell. Yi Xing's strength skyrocketed, and his eyes were filled with fighting spirit. Yi Xing was not afraid at all even if he was going against someone who was half a step away from being a martial honor. He was extremely confident. Boom! The half-martial highness realm dark figure threw out another punch. The space shook violently as the gust of the punch instantly arrived. Kill! Yi Xing shouted. The dragon blood spear shone brightly as he stabbed out, turning into nearly 100 spear shadows that swept out like a gust of wind. Bang 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 bang, the dark figure's gust of wind contained terrifying power. Dozens of the astral spear shadows were shattered by the punch. Yi Xing felt the power from the dragon blood spear, and his arm felt slightly numb. The strength of a half-step martial honor was indeed terrifying. Even if Yi Xing used the extreme level of the star aspect, it was still not easy to deal with. However, this time, Yi Xing's astral spear shadows were much more powerful than when he didn't use the star aspect. There were many astral spears, and some of the astral spears that were at the edge of the fist shadows were not shattered by the astral spears. Instead, they penetrated the fist shadows and attacked the dark figure. The dark figure flashed and dodged the attack of the astral spears at an extremely fast speed. Once again, he performed an extreme-level spiritual martial art fist technique and attacked Yi Xing. Bang bang bang, bang 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 bang. Yi Xing used the wind shadow spear art to fight against the enemy. Within a radius of 1,000 meters, there were layers upon layers of spear shadows that flashed like flowing light, ruthlessly attacking the dark figure. The dark figure's strength was indeed powerful. In the face of such a dense attack of astral spears, a punch was enough to shatter one of them. The remaining astral spears were dodged with speed and were not at a disadvantage. At every moment, Yi Xing and the dark figure were colliding countless times, and the sound of explosions was unceasing. Ever since the wind shadow spear art had broken through to the perfection realm, Yi Xing had never encountered such an evenly matched battle. The dragon blood spear in his hand was thrusting out faster and faster, and the power was getting stronger and stronger. His martial arts potential was quickly being stimulated in this intense battle. Suddenly, a light flashed in Yi Xing's mind. His comprehension of the wind shadow spear art had reached a new height. Breaking through to the perfection realm was the perfection realm. In an instant, Yi Xing's spear speed increased by a large margin. Every thrust of his spear was like an antelope's horn, untraceable. The number of spear shadows in the surroundings suddenly increased and became denser. Moreover, the power of each spear was even more terrifying. Puff puff puff. Even though the dark figure's attainments in the perfection realm were extremely high, and the power of his fist was also incomparably strong, it was still unable to shatter so many astral spears. In the blink of an eye, the dark figure was struck several times, and several holes were pierced in his body. The dark figure roared angrily, and immediately changed from offense to defense. Both of his fists were used to defend in all directions, and transformed into an astral fist that enveloped him, shattering all of the astral spears that were thrusting from all directions. Yi Xing unleashed a torrential barrage of attacks on the dark figure. With every thrust of his spear, his understanding of the wind shadow spear arts deepened. He became more and more familiar with it, and his spear arts became more and more godly. In the end, the dark figure was still unable to block Yi Xing's perfect spear art. The dragon blood spear broke through the opponent's astral fist defense, and very quickly, the dark figure was defeated, turning into a high-quality dark astral power that was absorbed by Yi Xing. Whoosh! Just as this dark figure was killed by Yi Xing, another terrifying aura came. On the 4th floor of the pagoda, another half-step honorable realm dark figure appeared. Yi Xing's wind shadow spear art had reached the perfection realm, and he could even kill a half-step honorable realm expert. However, Yi Xing put away the dragon blood spear. Not only did he need to kill the dark figure and cultivate the dark spirit body, he also needed to cultivate martial arts. Now that the wind shadow spear art had reached the perfection realm, Yi Xing also needed to cultivate another extreme spiritual martial art, the sky-burning sun fist, to the perfection realm. After the sky-burning sun fist, it was the archery art, the black flame arrow art. Although Yi Xing's current strength was enough to kill a half-step honorable realm expert, and his chances of winning the 3rd round of the competition were very high, Yi Xing still needed to raise his strength as much as possible. It was better to be safe than sorry. Qin Wenyan had to obtain the number 1 Son of the Stars on the Heavenly Fate rankings. He had to be prepared to face off against the strongest opponents and raise his strength to the limit. Chapter 555. Although the sky-burning sun fist and the black flame arrow art were also at perfection, the time needed to reach perfection was much shorter than the wind shadow spear art. Therefore, these two extreme rank spirit martial arts were much harder to break through to perfection than the wind shadow spear art, and would take much longer. However, Yi Xing had a super brain and an amazing comprehension ability. As long as there was an opportunity to break through to perfection, he would be able to grasp it accurately. Therefore, it was only a matter of time before these two extreme rank spirit martial arts reached perfection. It was the same as the first time he had entered the Dark Star Pagoda. When he was tired, he would return to the 2nd floor to rest. When he was well rested, he would return to the 4th floor to continue the battle. Yi Xing used all of his trump cards. One after another, the half-step venerable dark figures fell under his hands. While his martial attainment increased, His body also absorbed the dark star power and continued to strengthen. A few days later, Yi Xing's sky-burning sun fist successfully broke through to perfection. Yi Xing switched to archery to kill his enemies. His archery attainment of Heart's 6 transformations, Black Flame Arrow Art at perfection, Dark Aura and Fire Aura of One with the Heavens, Peak Extreme Rank Spirit Weapon Big Dipper Bow, Physical Strength equivalent to Venerable 9 stars, and Extreme Grade Fire Astral Form, Yi Xing still hadn't used Sagittarius constellation to increase the power of his arrows. He had only used the other aspects of his strength. The arrows shot out by the Big Dipper Bow had already reached a frightening level. Even the half-step Venerable Dark figures couldn't block more than a few arrows before they were killed. As more and more half-step Venerable Dark figures were killed, Yi Xing's body gradually strengthened. His Dark Star Spirit body was getting closer and closer to perfection. His physical strength had already surpassed Venerable 9 stars, and was about to reach half-step Venerable Realm. Using archery to kill the dark figures was too fast. In comparison, Yi Xing's dark spirit body improved the fastest when he was practicing archery. Before the Black Flame Arrow technique reached the transformation stage, Yi Xing's dark star spirit body had already reached the great perfection stage. Full circle was the limit of the dark star spirit body. If he wanted to improve further, he would have to go to the 5th level and learn the Dark Star Xian body cultivation method. By refining his body into a Dark Star Xian body, he would be able to compete with astral-reaching realm experts with just the power of his body. The dark figure on the 5th floor should be at least a 1-star venerable. With Yi Xing's current strength, he was not qualified to challenge the 5th floor. Therefore, it would be good if he could cultivate the Dark Star Spirit body to the limit. Although the Dark Star Xian body was powerful, it was not something that Yi Xing could touch right now. Yi Xing continued to cultivate on the 4th floor of the Dark Star Pagoda. His physical strength had reached the level of a half-step honorable. He withdrew his astrology, worldly momentum, and other aspects of his strength. He only relied on his attainments in archery to fight his enemies. In this way, killing the half-step honorable dark figure would be a lot more difficult. However, it would be more beneficial for the cultivation of the Black Flame Arrow art. After cultivating bitterly for more than a day, Yi Xing's Black Flame Arrow art finally had an opportunity to break through to the perfection realm. Yi Xing was blessed with good fortune. The Black Flame Arrow art was displayed in his hands, reaching perfection. There were no moves or styles, but it possessed an extremely frightening power. The Perfection Realm Black Flame Arrow art was displayed. An arrow shot out explosively, killing the half-step honorable dark figure. The power of archery is indeed powerful. I haven't used the power of the astrology and worldly momentum yet. If I were to use all of my strength, how powerful would the arrow be? What if I add the power of the Sagittarius constellation? Yi Xing's eyes shone. Even if his Wind Shadow Spear art and Great Sun-Burning Sky Fist were also at the perfection realm, the Black Flame Arrow art was still a heaven-defying trump card. Even Yi Xing himself wasn't sure how powerful the arrow would be if he were to use all of his trump cards. At the very least, a half-step honorable expert would definitely be killed in an instant. There was no doubt about it. Yi Xing left the Dark Star Pagoda and asked about the time. He had stayed in the Dark Star Pagoda for 8 days. He was also secretly estimating the time inside the pagoda. There wasn't much difference. This perfection realm? Hearing Yi Xing say that his Dark Star Spirit body had reached the perfection realm, Zhou Kunshan sucked in a breath of cold air. The Black Biao King also exclaimed. The first time he cultivated the Dark Star Spirit body, he reached the perfection realm. The second time he cultivated, he reached the perfection realm. Since the establishment of the Dark Star sect, there had never been someone who could cultivate the Dark Star Spirit body so quickly. Yi Xing was like a person who was born for the Dark Star Spirit body. This speed shocked even the Black Biao King. The more shocked the Black Biao King was, the happier he was. This proved that his philosophy was correct. A demon star in troubled times was indeed extraordinary. He believed that Yi Xing would definitely have a heaven-defying performance in the future. The Black Biao King's eyes shone brightly. He saw the light of hope. Perhaps, the destruction of the Great Yuan dynasty could really come true on Yi Xing, this demon star in troubled times. These days, Wei Qingxian didn't mind being outside the Dark Star Pagoda. She had been bitterly cultivating her body technique. After Yi Xing came out of the Dark Star Pagoda, she went in to cultivate again. This time, the cultivation time was relatively shorter. She came out of the pagoda after about a day. My physical body has been cultivated to between an 8-star venerable and a 9-star venerable. I can no longer absorb any more dark star energy. The dark star spirit body can't be improved for the time being. Wei Qingxian came out and spoke of her attainments in the dark star spirit body. As she spoke, she glanced at Yi Xing. Yi Xing's cultivation of the dark star spirit body was really abnormal. Her attainments in the dark star spirit body were about the same as Yi Xing's when he first cultivated it. But Yi Xing had already reached the great circle of the dark star spirit body. The next breakthrough would be the cultivation of the dark star Xian body. Very good. The strength of the two of you is definitely not inferior to the top geniuses of the Great Yuan dynasty. Especially brother Yi Xing. This time, I have high hopes for you to win and become the son of the stars. The Black Biao King smiled. He was very happy. There were only a few days left until the genius selection. The Black Biao King brought the two of them back to the Blood Edge Academy through the transmission array. Honorable Mo Jian was waiting in the grand hall of the valley deep in the backyard. When he saw Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian return, he did not ask about the two of them in the Dark Star sect. The next day, Honorable Mo Jian led the junior geniuses of the Blood Edge Empire who were participating in the third genius selection from the Academy to the Divine Continent Mountain. At the foot of the Divine Continent Mountain, there was a huge transmission array. It was the only Class 5 transmission array in the East Divine Continent. A Level 5 teleportation formation required much more energy than a Level 4 teleportation formation. Every time it was activated, it would consume a huge amount of energy. Normally, this teleportation formation would be sealed. It would only be activated when the East Divine Continent and the Middle Sky Continent had business dealings. The junior geniuses who were participating in the third genius selection were led by their seniors to the Divine Continent Mountain. A year had passed, and the junior geniuses of the East Divine Continent had all improved in their cultivation. Compared to a year ago, they had undergone a complete transformation. Chapter 556. Among the younger generation of the Blood Edge Empire, Mo Tong and Mo Mingyue were among the top 10 geniuses, while Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian were among the rising stars. Therefore, the arrival of the Bloody Edge Empire's warriors immediately attracted the attention of the younger geniuses. Many of them looked over with fighting spirit. After a year of cultivation, all the geniuses of the younger generation had improved. They were all unconvinced of the geniuses who had once suppressed them. Mo Tong was the #1 genius of the 10 great geniuses. Many of the younger geniuses wanted to challenge him, to take his position and replace him. However, these young geniuses did not know that this first-ranked genius had already lost to Yi Xing at the beginning of the year. Although this had caused a sensation in the Bloody Edge Academy, it had not spread to the outside world. Mo Tong was a member of the royal family of the Blood Edge Empire, while Yi Xing was just a foreign student who had just entered the Blood Edge Academy. Mo Tong's defeat made all the other students feel ashamed, so of course they wouldn't spread the news. Yi Xing also didn't deliberately spread the news, so the other warriors naturally didn't know. Currently, Mo Tong's cultivation had already broken through to the 7th level of the Astral Star Realm. His strength was comparable to an 8-star Venerable Master. However, he did not have the guts to ask Yi Xing to take back the stage. When Yi Xing defeated him, he was only a 6th-star Venerable. Now, Yi Xing was a 7th-star Venerable. Mo Tong knew how powerful Yi Xing was. He had no chance of winning at the same level. He was sure that if he challenged Yi Xing, he would be asking for trouble. The result would be the same as last time. Mo Tong, do you dare to fight me? Not long after the warriors of the Bloody Edge Empire arrived, Yi Wuyan flew over, flapping a pair of wings on a supreme-grade flying spiritual tool. Among the top 10 geniuses, Yi Wuyan was ranked 2nd, while Mo Tong was ranked 1st. A year ago, Yi Wuyan had only been defeated by Mo Tong. A year later, Yi Wuyan had become a 7-star venerable, and his strength was much stronger than before. He did not believe that Mo Tong could defeat him. Although Mo Tong had been defeated by Yi Xing, he still had his pride. He did not take the other geniuses seriously. Why wouldn't I? Mo Tong shouted and flew out from the group of Shui Feng Empire warriors. With Yi Xing by his side, Mo Tong's #1 ranking was just a joke. This made Mo Tong very depressed, and a flame of fury burned in his heart. However, he did not dare to vent his anger on Yi Xing. Now that Yi Wuyan had challenged him, Mo Tong could vent his anger on Yi Wuyan. Fierce Blood Claw. Mo Tong flew out and without saying a word, he performed the extreme spiritual martial art, Fierce Blood Claw, and grabbed at Yi Wuyan. A giant blood-red claw tore through the air current. It contained terrifying power and instantly reached for Yi Wuyan's head. Although he did not use his astrology, Mo Tong did not show any mercy when he attacked. His strength was fully unleashed. Black Flame Palm. Yi Wuyan suddenly emitted a scorching aura. It seemed that there was a flame burning in his body. A ball of invisible flame gushed out in an instant. He slapped at the blood claw in the sky with one palm and slapped at Mo Tong with the other. The blood claw in the sky was smashed by the black flame palm. The blood chi was burned into nothingness by the black flame. Mo Tong clawed out again and shattered Yi Wuyan's black flame palm. The two of them were evenly matched. Bang 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 bang. In the blink of an eye, the two made more than 10 moves in a row, but they could not defeat each other. Bush, bush. After 10 moves, the two used their astrology at the same time. Mo Tong's astral power was a notch above Yi Wuyan's. Soon, the evenly matched situation between the two was broken. Yi Wuyan was forced to retreat. After 20 moves, Yi Wuyan was defeated. I admit defeat. Humph. You overestimate yourself. Mo Tong raised his head slightly, revealing a sense of arrogance. Ever since he was defeated by Yi Xing in the academy, Mo Tong's heart had only been suppressed. It had been a long time since he felt this comfortable. However, when Mo Tong thought of Yi Xing, the arrogance on his face dimmed a little. Yi Xing had become his inner demon. His pride was not worth mentioning in front of Yi Xing. Mo Tong shook his head and dispelled these negative thoughts. He thought to himself, among the younger generation, I'm only inferior to Yi Xing. The rest of the geniuses are nothing in front of me. Thinking of this, Mo Tong felt much better in his heart. The pride on his face returned. However, he did not know that among the younger generation of the Blood Edge Empire, besides Yi Xing, there was also Wei Qingxian, an 8-star venerable. Wei Qingxian did not suppress her cultivation. However, since she did not use her astral energy, the aura of her cultivation did not leak out. Other than venerables, the rest of the martial artists could not see through her cultivation. Naturally, venerables would not be so bored as to point out that Wei Qingxian was an 8-star venerable. As for Yi Xing, he used a secret technique to suppress his cultivation. Even venerables could not see through his true cultivation. They could only see that he was a 7-star venerable. Some of the younger generation of the 10 prodigies were already at the 7th level of the astral realm. The 7-star venerable was not outstanding at all. Mo Tong's gaze selectively ignored Yi Xing and swept across the other geniuses of the younger generation with an air of arrogance. Mo Tong, in Xianxia, will challenge you. It's time for the first place of the 10 prodigies to change hands. Just when Mo Tong thought that other than Yi Xing, the rest of the younger generation would cower under his gaze, a cold sneer sounded. The Heavenly Eagle Empire's younger generation genius, Xianxia, flew over. Last year, Xianxia was only a rising star. Later on, during the selection at the end of the year, he shocked everyone. Not only did he make it into the 10 prodigies, but he also made it into the top 5. The veteran prodigies, Yi Wuxia and Wu Yuanjing, had both been defeated by Xianxia. Now, a year had passed, and Xianxia had improved tremendously. He was already a 7-star venerable, and he actually dared to challenge Mo Tong, the #1 prodigy. Mo Tong glanced at Xianxia with disdain and said, among the younger generation of the Heavenly Eagle Empire, Only Ing Kong is worthy of my attention and can take a few of my moves. You don't have the right to challenge me. Ing Xiangyang smiled proudly. Ing Chang Kong and Yi Wen have already lost to me. Now it's your turn. In front of me, Ing Xiangyang, none of you are worthy of the title prodigy. In terms of age, Ing Xiangyang was 2 or 3 years younger than Mo Tong, Ing Chang Kong, and Yi Wen, but they were all 7-star venerable. In terms of potential, Ing Xiangyang was indeed more talented. When Mo Tong heard Ing Xiangyang say that Ing Chang Kong and Yi Wen had already lost to him, he was surprised. If that was true, then Ing Xiangyang would really be a formidable opponent. With Yi Xing stepping on his head, Mo Tong was already very unhappy. He could not tolerate a second prodigy of the younger generation stepping on his head. The disdain in Mo Tong's eyes faded, and it was replaced by a bone-chilling coldness. I'm very sorry. I didn't make it big again today. Brothers, vote for other authors. Don't vote for chocolate for now. I can't afford it. Today's energy was all attracted by the box office battle of The Return of the Great Sage. I'll definitely correct the delay tomorrow. I'll only update 3 chapters today. I won't ask for monthly votes, but I'll ask for a free recommendation ticket. Thank you. Chapter 557. Mo Tong gave a cold snort and said, "Then bring it on." Whoosh! A terrifying aura erupted from Mo Tong's body as a beam of starlight shot into the sky. He had directly used his astrology. Yi Xing stepping on his head was already the limit of what Mo Tong could tolerate. He could not tolerate a second person challenging his position. Ing Xiangyang's challenge had completely ignited the anger in Mo Tong's heart, causing his strength to erupt. Ha ha! Ing Xiangyang sneered. He did not care much about the terrifying aura that Mo Tong had erupted with. Ing Xiangyang said, "You have quite a temper. It's a pity that your strength has not improved much in the past year. You have a temper but no strength. Nothing good will come of it." Mo Tong said angrily, "It's more than enough to deal with a junior like you." Ing Xiangyang chuckled. I'll let you see what a true genius is." As he spoke, Ing Xiangyang raised his hand and a high-grade spirit weapon appeared. At the same time, a beam of starlight shot out from between his eyebrows. He had used his astrology. Ing Xiangyang's astrology was a hurricane star, and its grade had reached the pinnacle. Whoosh! Ing Xiangyang's hurricane astrology greatly increased his speed. His figure flashed and he disappeared in an instant. Mo Tong's expression suddenly changed. Ing Xiangyang's speed was too fast. Even he couldn't see Ing Xiangyang's figure clearly. He could only vaguely see a faint figure moving at extreme speed, leaving behind a series of afterimages. Ing Xiangyang not only had the hurricane astrology to increase speed, but his comprehension of the power of the wind far surpassed that of ordinary geniuses. He had walked far in the realm of intricacy, and his attainments in lightness techniques were also quite high. In terms of speed, even a 9-star venerable might not be a match for Ing Xiangyang. Mo Tong's strength was considered average among 8-star venerables, so it was naturally difficult for him to see Ing Xiangyang's figure clearly. Mo Tong's expression was grim. Ing Xiangyang suddenly appeared in front of him and then behind him. His whereabouts were unpredictable, and he could attack from any direction. This made Mo Tong feel that it was impossible to guard against, and the pressure was great. If you want to fight, then fight. What tricks are you playing? Seeing that Ing Xiangyang was not attacking, Mo Tong shouted coldly. If Ing Xiangyang had attacked him directly, Mo Tong would have been able to lock onto his position. However, Ing Xiangyang was constantly moving around him, making it impossible for Mo Tong to pinpoint Ing Xiangyang's position. His heart was constantly on guard, and it was very stifling. Are you in such a hurry to fail? I'll fulfill your wish. Ing Xiangyang said with a smile. His voice seemed to come from all directions. As soon as he finished speaking, 7 air-piercing sounds suddenly rang out in the void. 7 beams of sword energy shot toward Mo Tong from different directions and angles. Supreme Class Spiritual Martial Art, 18 Swords of Sky Eagle. Ing Xiangyang changed his direction and stabbed out 7 times in an instant. Fierce blood claw. Mo Tong's hands turned red as he executed the ferocious blood claw. He quickly clawed out and shattered the 7 astral swords. Is that all you've got? Mo Tong shouted coldly. Hee, that was just an appetizer. Now we're getting serious. Xianxia's voice rang out, followed by the flash of his sword. In the blink of an eye, 12 sword lights shot toward Mo Tong from the front, back, left, right, and all directions. Mo Tong's pupils constricted as a sense of danger rose in him. He could easily block the 7 beams of sword energy that came at him at the same time, but Xianxia's 12 beams of sword energy that came at him from different directions made him feel as though he could not block them. After all, these were beams of sword energy that came at him from different directions. If they had come from the same direction, Mo Tong might have been able to block dozens of them at the same time. However, Mo Tong now felt that his life was in danger. Blood Shadow Tempest. Mo Tong shouted and unleashed the ultimate move of the fierce blood claw. Claw shadows slashed out in all directions, stirring up a bloody tempest. Clang, 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 clang. 10 beams of sword energy were blocked by Mo Tong. However, there were a total of 12 beams of sword energy that came at him. Swoosh. When Mo Tong unleashed the Blood Shadow Tempest, he made his move. He dispersed the 10 beams of sword energy and shot out from a safe angle. The other 2 beams of sword energy missed. I've been waiting for you to break out of the encirclement. Xianxia's voice rang out, accompanied by a terrifying beam of sword energy. The air was split in half, and the sky seemed to have been cut open by the sword energy. The terrifying beam of sword energy arrived in front of Mo Tong in an instant. This attack was not just a long-range attack of sword energy. Xianxia wielded a supreme-grade spirit weapon and charged directly at him. It was an extremely fast and powerful attack. The speed of this sword was faster than any of the previous ones. Mo Tong was horrified. He hastily circulated his astral energy to form a protective shield to prevent Chang from clawing at him. The sword energy was already in front of him. The claw attack had just formed when it was split open by the beam of sword energy. The protective shield was also split in 2 by the supreme-grade spirit weapon. The supreme-grade spirit weapon slammed into Mo Tong's body. Mo Tong grunted in pain and spat out a mouthful of blood as he retreated rapidly. Mo Tong was wearing a supreme-grade spirit-grade defensive inner armor. The blade of the sword did not cut through the inner armor and injure his body, but the terrifying power contained in the attack was transmitted into Mo Tong's body and injured his internal organs. Xianxia sheathed his sword and stood with a proud expression. I, Xianxia, am the #1 prodigy of the East Divine Continent. Prodigy? Who in the East Divine Continent dares to call themselves prodigies in front of Xianxia? Mo Tong was sent flying 1,000 meters away by Xianxia's attack. His face was deathly pale, and he hurriedly ate a healing spirit pill. Only then did his complexion improve. Looking at the arrogant Xianxia, Mo Tong's face was livid with rage. His pride as the #1 prodigy had been mercilessly crushed once again. Xianxia had followed in Yixing's footsteps and stepped on his head as well. Mo Tong spat out another mouthful of blood, but this time it was not caused by Xianxia. It was because he had nowhere to vent his frustrations and had been angered to the point of vomiting blood. However, after vomiting blood, the frustration in his heart had dissipated by quite a bit. Looking at the arrogant Xianxia, Mo Tong's brows furrowed, and a thought suddenly occurred to him. Mo Tong said hatefully, Xianxia, the title of #1 prodigy of the East Divine Continent is not yours. Xianxia's gaze was like a sword as he stared at Mo Tong. Even you were defeated by me. Who else can be my match? Hearing the words defeated by me, Mo Tong's face turned green and almost twisted. He was infuriated. Mo Tong's gaze swept over Yixing. The #1 prodigy of my Blood Edge Empire's younger generation is no longer me, but Yixing. You are still far from being the #1 prodigy of the East Divine Continent. Whether it was Yixing or Xianxia, Mo Tong's heart was filled with hatred. Therefore, as long as the 2 of them fought, one of them would be injured. No matter who was injured, Mo Tong would feel better in his heart. Chapter 558. Xianxiang's gaze turned to Yixing. In the divine continent mystic realm, Xianxiang had suffered at the hands of Yixing. He had always harbored a grudge against Yixing. Yixing, do you dare to fight me? Xianxiang's aura exploded. With a loud roar, his sharp sword aura pressed down on Yixing. In the divine continent mystic realm, Yixing had relied on his level 3 formation to defeat Xianxiang, Changkong, and Mo Tong. Now, Xianxiang had publicly challenged him to a battle of martial strength. If Yixing dared to use a formation against him, he would ask the Heavenly Eagle Empire's supremacies to destroy Yixing's formation flags. Let's see how you fight me without the help of a formation. Xianxiang snorted coldly in his heart. Xianxiang was very confident in his growth in this year. His cultivation had already reached the peak of the 7th level of the Astral Dipper realm. He was invincible among the exalted 8 stars. Just now, Xianxiang had not used his full strength against Mo Tong. He had only used 70 to 80% of his strength. The third genius selection was about to begin. Yixing did not want to be in the limelight at this juncture. He said, "You are very strong. I admit defeat." The martial artists were stunned. He actually admitted defeat? Admitting defeat without fighting, in the eyes of the martial artists, this was simply an extraordinary humiliation. Even if you were no match for him and wanted to admit defeat, you should at least fight. How could you admit defeat when someone else was challenging you? In the eyes of the martial artists, this was the act of a coward. Xianxiang was stunned. He had not expected Yixing to admit defeat. He said, "You actually admit defeat?" Yixing did not care about what others thought. He said, "I admit defeat." Xianxiang laughed softly. "Ah, so you're a coward. You can admit defeat now, but when it comes to the genius selection, you won't be able to. At that time, I'll take care of you slowly." The Heavenly Eagle Empire's martial artists all started laughing loudly. The Blood Edge Empire's martial artists looked at Yixing in confusion. They didn't know why Yixing didn't care about his face and directly admitted defeat. In their opinion, since Yixing could defeat Mo Tong at the beginning of the year, his strength might not be below Xianxiang's. Yixing didn't take Xianxiang's mockery to heart. "You should pray that you don't meet me at the genius selection. Xianxiang I Tianhe will fight you." Just as Xianxiang was laughing heartily, a voice suddenly came from afar. Xianxiang's smile froze on his face. He turned around and saw Yi Tianhe rushing towards him. Yi Tianhe was a descendant of an inferior empire. He was rather far away from the divine continent mountain and had just arrived. Other than Yixing, the rest of the top 100 young geniuses in the East Divine Continent were all from the younger generations of empires. And Yixing was now considered a younger generation of the Blood Edge Empire, so he was the first to arrive at the Divine Continent Mountain. The younger generations of the lower-rank empires were the last to arrive. As soon as Yi Tianhe arrived, everyone was basically present. Yi Tianhe's cultivation aura was released, and it was terrifying. All the martial artists were shocked. Yi Tianhe was already a 7-star venerable, and his aura wasn't any weaker than an 8-star venerable. At the end of last year, Yi Tianhe was only at the 4th level of the Astral Dipper realm. In just 1 year, he had advanced by 3 levels? From a 4-star venerable to a 7-star venerable in 1 year, all the martial artists were shocked and speechless. Even Yixing was a little surprised. Yi Tianhe's cultivation speed was almost catching up to his. Of course, although they both advanced by 3 levels in a year, going from a 4-star venerable to a 7-star venerable was obviously not as difficult as going from a 5-star venerable to an 8-star venerable. Last year, Yi Tianhe was only a 4-star venerable, but he was a rising star and was in the limelight. But at that time, Yi Tianhe's strength couldn't be compared to the true prodigies. After entering the Divine Continent's secret realm, he kept a low profile and stayed away from the crowd, not fighting with others. In the Divine Continent's secret realm, Xianxiang chased after Yi Tianhe for a period of time but failed. Now that Yi Tianhe was a 7-star venerable, There was no need for him to hide anymore. He appeared in a high-profile manner and challenged Xianxia, who had defeated Mo Tong. Clearly, he wanted to take revenge on Xianxia. The third genius tryouts were about to begin. Yi Tianhe believed that with his strength and talent, he would definitely stand out in the tryouts. If he was chosen by the experts of the Great Yuan dynasty, Yi Tianhe was excited just thinking about it. At that time, even if it was the Heavenly Eagle Empire, Yi Tianhe wouldn't be afraid. Therefore, Yi Tianhe wasn't afraid of offending the Heavenly Eagle Empire. He challenged Xianxia in a high-profile manner. Even if the Heavenly Eagle Empire's venerables were present, Yi Tianhe wasn't afraid. The third genius tryouts were organized by the Great Yuan dynasty. As a participant, the Heavenly Eagle Empire wouldn't dare to stop him. Who would dare to defy the Great Yuan dynasty's orders? Yi Tianhe was very sure that the Heavenly Eagle Empire wouldn't dare. Xianxia was shocked to see that Yi Tianhe had become a 7-star venerable. However, he was still very confident in his strength and quickly calmed down. He challenged Yi Xing, but the latter admitted defeat and avoided the battle. Xianxia felt like he had punched cotton. He had nowhere to vent his strength. Now that Yi Tianhe had challenged him, he could vent his anger on him. Xianxia smiled coldly. Last year, you only knew how to run away with your tail between your legs. This year, you've grown up. You dare to challenge me. Yi Tianhe's face turned green. He was angry at the mention of last year's cowardly incident. Yi Tianhe said coldly, Xianxia, things are different now. I only need 3 moves to defeat a piece of trash like you. As he spoke, Yi Tianhe unsheathed his supreme-grade spiritual sword, which shone brightly. Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Tianhe charged at Xianxia with his sword. It streaked across the sky like a stream of light. The speed and power of the sword were a level higher than Xianxia's attack. Xianxia was shocked. Yi Tianhe's strength was much more terrifying than he had imagined. 18 swords of Heavenly Eagle. Xianxia shouted. Using his astrology, he instantly unleashed the 18 swords of Heavenly Eagle to the limit. He stabbed 15 times in a row. His 18 swords of Heavenly Eagle had not reached perfection yet. 15 swords was his limit. Ding 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 ding. Yi Tianhe's sword energy swirled and created many sword flowers. The 15 sword energies that came from different directions were instantly shattered. Xianxia was shocked. He pushed his speed to the limit and retreated backward, barely dodging Yi Tianhe's sword. In an instant, the supreme-grade spiritual sword in Xianxia's hand disappeared and was replaced by a supreme-grade spiritual spear. Xianxia specialized in swords and spears, but his spear technique was more powerful. Flying Eagle Spear Technique. Xianxia stabbed out with his spear in an instant, unleashing his ultimate attack. The spear transformed into a huge eagle with a terrifying aura. In an instant, it turned around and attacked Yi Tianhe with its spear. Chapter 559. Facing Xianxia's ultimate attack, Yi Tianhe smirked, showing a hint of disdain. Break! Yi Tianhe yelled and swung his sword at Xianxia's spear. The sharp sword aura was like a bright waterfall, and Xianxia's spear was instantly split into 2. As soon as the sword aura dissipated, Yi Tianhe's supreme-grade spiritual weapon shook and turned into sword flowers, piercing through Xianxia's spear to kill him. Yi Tianhe's swordsmanship had reached perfection. Just now, he had destroyed Xianxia's 15-sword force with a flick of his sword. Now that the sword flowers were coming at him, Xianxia immediately felt the threat of death. Retreat! Xianxia pushed his speed to the limit and retreated quickly. At the same time, he waved his spear and turned it into a wall of defense in front of him. Using the hurricane astrology, Xianxia was indeed very fast. The spear defense was instantly broken by the sword aura, but Xianxia had already escaped the attack range of the sword aura. Although he dodged Yi Tianhe's attack, Xianxia was not happy at all. Yi Tianhe had not even used his astrology, but he was already in a mess. Their strength was not on the same level at all. Third sword. Yi Tianhe bellowed and instantly launched his third attack at Xianxia. As he attacked, Yi Tianhe used his astrology. His supreme-grade metal element astrology emitted a bright golden light that shone in the sky. Yi Tianhe had just made his move when he yelled. As soon as he finished speaking, he was already in front of Xianxia. The supreme-grade spiritual weapon in his hand was pointed at Xianxia's throat. Xianxia's speed was fast enough. Even Venerable 9-star might not be as fast as him. However, compared to Yi Tianhe's sword, Xianxia was still too slow and could not dodge. Moreover, Yi Tianhe's strength had skyrocketed after using his astrology. The power of this sword was so terrifying that Xianxia could not block it at all. Even if he could not block it, he had to block it. In the face of death, Xianxia's potential was unleashed. He unleashed 120% of his strength and lashed out with his spear. Clang! After a loud explosion, the spear in Xianxia's hand was knocked away by Yi Tianhe's sword. The long sword shot forward like a long snake. Xianxia had already begun to dodge when he attacked, but he was still a step too slow. The sword pierced into Xianxia's neck, leaving a deep wound. Blood spurted out instantly. Xianxia let out a blood-curdling scream as he threw away the spear in his hand. He covered his neck with both hands as he retreated. Fortunately, although the wound on his neck was large, it did not harm his throat. Although the injury was not light, it was not life-threatening. However, the attack on his neck was so close that his entire head could have been chopped off. Xianxia was so scared that he wet his pants. Although Yi Tianhe had begun to reveal his edge, he still did not dare to kill Xianxia in front of the Heavenly Eagle Empire's martial practitioners. He had intentionally held back this time. Otherwise, he would have sliced open Xianxia's entire neck and beheaded him. The sword in Yi Tianhe's hand was bright and clean, without a single drop of blood on it. He instantly sheathed it. Looking at the retreating Xianxia, he shouted, "Useless trash." All the martial practitioners of the younger generation were shocked beyond words. In the past year, the strength of the younger generation had changed too much. First, Mo Tong, the #1 prodigy, was defeated by Xianxia. Then, Xianxia, the new #1 prodigy, was defeated by Yi Tianhe. Moreover, according to Mo Tong, Yi Xing, who was only a rising prodigy last year, was already stronger than him. On this day, at least 3 of the previous year's #1 prodigy had surpassed him this year. Indeed, each generation had its own prodigy. The new generation would surpass the old. There was no such thing as the #1 prodigy, only more prodigies. At this moment, all the martial practitioners' eyes were focused on Yi Tianhe. Yi Tianhe's face was filled with pride and joy. He had already regarded himself as the #1 prodigy of the younger generation in the East Divine Continent. What prodigy? You're all a joke in front of me, Yi Tianhe. From today onwards, there will only be one prodigy among the younger generation in the East Divine Continent, and that is me, Yi. Before Yi Tianhe could finish his sentence, his eyes suddenly widened. His eyes were filled with disbelief and fear. Hiss! Many martial artists immediately sucked in a breath of cold air, and some even cried out in surprise. Behind Yi Tianhe stood an elder in his 60s. It was Supremacy Chang Tian from the Heavenly Eagle Empire. As Yi Tianhe spoke, Supremacy Chang Tian's figure suddenly appeared behind him. His hand was like a sword as he stabbed forward. His entire hand pierced through Yi Tianhe's back. Even the supreme-grade spiritual level inner armor seemed to have been pierced through instantly. Yi Tianhe turned his head and said in disbelief, You dare to kill a participant of the genius trials? The Great Yuan Dynasty. Supremacy Chang Tian withdrew his hand from Yi Tianhe's body. In his hand was a still beating heart. Yi Tianhe's voice stopped abruptly. He died instantly. A prodigy had fallen just like that. Bang! Supremacy Chang Tian clenched his fist, and the beating heart in his hand exploded into a cloud of blood mist. You're just a junior from a low-grade empire. How dare you kill a junior from the Heavenly Eagle Empire? You're courting death. Supremacy Chang Tian said indifferently. He glanced at Yi Xing, who was among the martial practitioners from the Bloody Edge Empire. Then he returned to the front of the martial practitioners from the Heavenly Eagle Empire in a flash. Yi Xing felt Supremacy Chang Tian's gaze on him. He was slightly shocked. The cause of Yi Tianhe's death was probably not what Supremacy Chang Tian had said. Although Yi Tianhe had injured Xianxia, he did not take his life. Injuries were unavoidable in a battle between juniors. This was very normal. There was no need to take another junior's life because of this. Moreover, Yi Tianhe was a junior participating in the Third Genius Trials. The Great Yuan dynasty had organized this Genius Trials to select the geniuses from the entire Starland in name. Yi Tianhe had defeated Xianxia. Nominally, he was the top junior genius in the East Divine Continent. If Supremacy Chang Tian killed such an outstanding genius, wouldn't it go against the Great Yuan dynasty's intention of organizing the Genius Trials? Although Supremacy Chang Tian was a figure that could shake the entire East Divine Continent's martial arts world, Yi Xing did not think he had the guts to go against the Great Yuan dynasty. Supremacy Chang Tian should know the true intention of the Great Yuan dynasty. Even if he doesn't know, the Great Yuan dynasty might have instructed him to seize the opportunity to kill Yi Tianhe. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the guts to do so. Yi Xing thought to himself. Fortunately, I didn't participate in Xianxia's challenge. Otherwise, if I had won, I'm afraid this old man would have used this as an excuse to kill me. Yi Xing thought about it and couldn't help but feel scared. He wasn't among the martial practitioners from the Bloody Edge Empire. If Supremacy Chang Tian had suddenly killed him, Supremacy Mo Jian might not have been able to react in time. Chapter 560. The death of Yi Tianhe made all the younger martial artists feel a sense of sympathy for him. There were so many martial artists in the world, but the ratio of geniuses was extremely small. Even in the upper-rank empires, the majority were mediocre. Those who could participate in the genius selection were all geniuses among geniuses. Especially Yi Tianhe, who was the pride of the heavens. Such a genius was hard to come by in the East Divine Continent. Geniuses of the martial way had a bright future. They would achieve great things in the future. It was the most lamentable thing for a genius to die prematurely. Yi Tianhe had died just like that. Most of the martial artists felt regret. Of course, they could only feel regret in their hearts. Yi Tianhe was killed by the Heavenly Eagle Empire's Eternal Sky Supremacy. No one dared to say anything bad about Eternal Sky Supremacy because of Yi Tianhe. Xianxia was injured and defeated. Yi Tianhe had died. The remaining geniuses of the younger generation were not in the mood to compete. Everyone had arrived. It was time to depart for the Middle Sky Continent. The supremacies of the three upper-rank empires worked together to open the seal of the Level 5 teleportation formation at the foot of the Divine Continent Mountain. The supremacies of the various factions took out upper-grade star crystals to activate the Level 5 teleportation formation. An ordinary Level 5 teleportation formation could teleport people tens of millions of miles away. After confirming the location, the martial artists entered the teleportation formation. Soon, light enveloped them, and they heard the sound of space being torn apart. After about 10 breaths, the sound of space being torn apart stopped. The light around them dissipated, and everyone appeared in a teleportation hall. They had arrived at the Middle Sky Continent. The quality of the star spiritual chi here is one level higher than in the East Divine Continent. When the light of the formation dissipated, Yi Xing could feel that the air here was different from the East Divine Continent. It was more suitable for martial artists to cultivate here. Are you martial artists from the East Divine Continent? The supremacies guarding the teleportation hall walked over and asked when they saw so many martial artists in the teleportation formation. This was a 5-star supremacy. However, be it Mo Jian, Yi Hong, or Eternal Sky Supremacy, they did not dare to be arrogant in front of this person. They were all very polite. Honorable Lord Mo Jian stepped forward and cupped his fists. We are martial artists from the East Divine Continent, here to participate in the genius selections. We need to head to the Starry Sky Temple. Brother, please help us adjust the transmission array. The Starry Sky Grand Ring could only be reached by the teleportation array of the Starry Sky Temple. The Starry Sky Temple was located in the central area of the Middle Sky Continent, which was within the territory of the Great Yuan Empire. The Middle Sky continent was very large. They were currently in the capital of the Eastern Han Empire, which was more than 20 million miles away from the Starry Sky Temple. They had to use a rank 5 teleportation formation to get there quickly. Get out of the way. The 5-star Venerate waved his hand dismissively. He was a martialist from the Eastern Han Empire. Even though he was facing a supremacy from the East Divine Continent, he still had a cold expression on his face. Soon, the 5-star Venerate adjusted the location and distance of the teleportation formation and said, "The Starry Sky Divine Temple has a circumference of 1 million miles. The void is restricted and you cannot teleport. The teleportation formation can only teleport you to 1 million miles away from the Starry Sky Divine Temple. After that, you will have to travel 1 million miles to the west to find the Starry Sky Divine Temple. The teleportation fee is 800 high-grade star crystals. One high-grade star crystal was equivalent to 100 mid-grade star crystals or 10,000 low-grade star crystals. 800 high-grade star crystals was equivalent to 8 million low-grade star crystals. The cost of using a rank 5 teleportation formation was indeed huge. Of course, the Eastern Han Empire had to pay a service fee to teleport here. Everyone had only used 600 high-grade star crystals to teleport here from the East Divine Continent's rank 5 teleportation formation. The distance to the Starry Sky Divine Temple was far less than the distance to the East Divine Continent. The Eastern Han Empire had to pay a service fee of 800 high-grade star crystals. These fees were borne by the various factions of the younger generation participating in the Genius Selection competition. It wasn't much if one faction paid for it all. If one faction paid for it all, the 3 high-grade empires would feel the pinch even if they had to teleport a few times. Before long, the martialists from the East Divine Continent arrived 1 million miles east of the Starry Sky Divine Temple through the teleportation formation. Yi Xing could feel that the spiritual qi of the stars here was even denser. It seemed like the Great Yuan dynasty's occupation of the central region of the Middle Sky Continent wasn't without reason. Honorable Lord Mo Jian, Honorable Lord Yi Hong, and Honorable Lord Chang Tian each took out a flying ship. All of them were black-class mid-grade large-scale flying treasures. The martialists boarded different flying ships according to their relationships. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The 3 flying ships were as fast as flowing lights. They streaked across the sky and flew towards the west. The black-class mid-grade flying treasures could travel 2 to 3 million miles in a day. It only took them half a day to find the Starry Sky Divine Temple. The Starry Sky Divine Temple was floating 1,000 feet high in the sky. It was a huge temple that was 100 feet tall and dozens of feet wide. It emitted starlight and could be seen from afar. It was easy to find. The 3 flying ships flew directly into the sky above the Starry Sky Divine Temple. In front of the Starry Sky Divine Temple, there was an altar that was 100 feet wide floating in the sky. This altar was densely covered with runes. It was a huge teleportation formation. This was a Starry Sky teleportation formation that was of a higher grade than a level 5 teleportation formation. The Starry Sky Grand Arena was located in the Starry Sky. It was unknown how far away it was from the Star Continent. Even a level 5 teleportation formation couldn't reach it. Only the teleportation formation of the Starry Sky Divine Temple could reach it. This teleportation formation had existed since ancient times. No one knew who had left it behind. In front of the Starry Sky Divine Temple sat a white-haired elder. He emitted a terrifying aura. It was much more terrifying than the aura of Honorable Lord Mo Jian and the other 2 honorables. In front of this white-haired elder, the 3 honorables were even more respectful. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly as they reported the identities of the martialists. The white-haired elder's eyes were like lightning. He swept his gaze across the younger generation of the East Divine Continent and said indifferently, "The East Divine Continent is a broken place. There are really 2 seedlings in this generation." The 3 honorables didn't reply. They just chuckled. This white-haired elder was the guardian of the Starry Sky Divine Temple. He was from the Great Yuan dynasty's Meng royal family. He was a half-step king realm expert. He wasn't someone the martialists of the East Divine Continent could compare with. The white-haired elder activated the teleportation formation and said, "Everyone, come up." Everyone stepped onto the altar. Soon, a beam of light was emitted from the teleportation formation. It shot towards the horizon and into the starry sky. The resplendent beam of light lasted for a few breaths of time before it disappeared. The martialists of the East Divine Continent on the altar had all disappeared. The vast star continent was boundless to the martialists. However, it was just a speck of dust compared to the starry sky of the universe. In the starry sky near the star continent, there was a small star continent. The martialists of the East Divine Continent had appeared here. This was where the starry sky Grand Arena was located. Chapter 561. Standing in the Grand Arena, one could see the entire star continent. However, the boundless star continent in the eyes of martial artists was merely the size of a plate in the eyes of Yi Xing and the others. Even a vast continent seemed so insignificant in the starry sky. This made the martial artists sigh inwardly. Compared to the universe, martial artists were truly too weak. Even if one became a king, he would be like a speck of dust. He would only be able to enjoy the glory of the star continent. If he were to leave the star continent and enter the starry sky, he would be like a drowning infant. The East God Continent's martial artists weren't the first to arrive at the Grand Arena. There were already two groups of martial artists who had arrived earlier, standing on the left and right sides of the star continent. In the center of the star continent, there was a large arena with a radius of 10 miles. Around this large arena, there were 4 smaller arenas that were more than 1,000 meters long and wide. 1 large and 4 small, there were a total of 5 arenas. Reverend Mo Jian, Reverend Yi Hong, Reverend Chang Tian. When the East God Continent's people arrived, the two groups of martial artists who had arrived earlier turned their gazes over. Soon after, people from each group walked over. The people who had arrived were also reverends. Clearly, they were the leaders of the martial artists from the other continents. Reverend Hao Yan, Reverend Yu Yan, Reverend Si, Reverend Gu Hong, Reverend Gao Yu. The East God Continent's 3 reverends returned the greetings and said, "You South Continent and West Continent came rather quickly. Looking at your joyous appearances, you must have produced quite a few young geniuses." Astral-reaching realm experts had a lifespan of 300 years. The East God Continent's 3 reverends were all people who had lived for 1 or 200 years. Moreover, they had also traveled to other continents before. Naturally, they were acquainted with the other continents' reverends. These 5 reverends came from South Continent and West Continent respectively. They nodded and smiled, sizing up the East God Continent's martial artists. Now was the golden age of martial arts. Regardless of the continent, the number of geniuses from the younger generation was a bit more than before. In most cases, apart from the Middle Sky Continent, the other 4 continents would have 1 or 2 7-star realm experts under the age of 25. However, in this generation, there were more than 10 7th-level astral realm geniuses from all the continents. Of course, there were no 8 stars venerable masters juniors in the southern continent or the western continent. Therefore, when the 5 supremacies' gazes landed on Wei Qingxian, the smiles on their faces froze. They thought that the southern continent and western continent would surpass the East Divine Continent in this generation of geniuses. Therefore, they were happy and wanted to show off in front of Honorable Mo Jian and the other 2. As a result, the number of 7-star venerable masters in the younger generation of the East Divine Continent exceeded that of the South Continent and the West He Continent. Moreover, there was also an 8-star venerable master junior. Less than 25 years old, the cultivation of Star Gang Realm LV8. Such a genius was rare even in the Middle Sky Continent. Under normal circumstances, it was hard to find a few in a generation. Among the younger generation of the East Divine Continent, there was an 8-star venerable master. This naturally proved that the quality of the younger generation of the East Divine Continent was higher than that of the South Continent and West He Continent. This made the 5 supremacies lose their mood to show off. Honorable Hao Yen, who was wearing a scarlet flame robe, looked at Wei Qingxian and said, "This generation of the East Divine Continent is also full of geniuses. This girl, which family is she from? An 8-star venerable master at such a young age. Her future is limitless." The younger generation of the East Divine Continent, except for Yi Xing, were all shocked. They looked at Wei Qingxian with surprise. Only then did they realize that there was an 8-star venerable master among the younger generation of geniuses. Honorable Mo Jian smiled and said, "She's a junior of my Blood Edge Empire." An 8-star exalted master under the age of 25, even in the Central Sky Continent it's rare to see such a talent. It seems that in this year's competition, she has a high chance of entering the Destiny Decree. The Blood Edge Empire can be considered proud and elated. Congratulations! Honorable Hao Yen congratulated. The supremacies hadn't seen each other for many years. Those who didn't have a good relationship with each other left after greeting each other. Those who had a good relationship with each other stayed behind to chat with Honorable Mo Jian and the others. The younger generation of the 3 continents also sized each other up from afar. Those who could participate in the 3rd genius selection were all geniuses among geniuses of their respective continents. They all had a sense of pride and didn't think that they would lose to each other. When their gazes met, there was a faint smell of gunpowder. Not long after, another group of cultivators arrived. They were from the North Tranquil Continent. The North Tranquil Continent was the strongest of the 4 continents. It had a total of 4 upper-rank empires. They were the Ancient Nether Empire, the North Wind Empire, the Extreme Ice Empire, and the Sword Edge Empire. "Pa, you guys are early. The more you serve as a foil, the earlier you come." This saying is true. When the North Tranquil Continent's cultivators arrived, a supremacy swept his gaze over the other 3 continents' cultivators and laughed. This was an 8-star supremacy with a violent aura. He was Ancient Nether Empire's Supremacy Nether Flame. Supremacy Nether Flame's words made the other 3 continents' cultivators unhappy. Supremacy Hao Yen said, "There's an 8-star supremacy among the younger generation of the East Divine Continent. He will definitely shine in the genius selection. It's not certain who will serve as a foil." Exalted Lord Hao Yen and Exalted Lord Mo Jian had a good relationship. Although the South Continent didn't have an 8-star venerable master, Exalted Lord Hao Yen didn't mind using the East Divine Continent's younger generation to slap Exalted Lord Netherflame's face. Even if the South Divine Continent's younger generation would lose face, Supremacy Hao Yen couldn't stand Supremacy Netherflame's arrogance and couldn't care less. 8-star supremacy? Supremacy Netherflame's gaze was like lightning as he instantly shot over to the East Divine Continent's cultivators. He quickly locked onto Wei Qingxian. The sun has risen from the west. The East Divine Continent really has an 8-star supremacy junior. Ha! Supremacy Netherflame chuckled and didn't seem to care much. Unfortunately, he's still a bit weaker than my North U Continent. My North U Continent has 2 8-star supremacy juniors. My Ancient Nether Empire has 1, and the Extreme Ice Empire also has 1, and... Supremacy Nether Flame paused. Another supremacy, whose aura was like an unsheathed sword, continued, and my Jianfeng Empire has a peerless swordsman. Although he's only a 7-star supremacy, he has the strength to defeat a 9-star supremacy. This genius selection is destined to be the stage of my North U Continent. You're all foils. Ha! Supremacy Heavenly Wind of the North Wind Empire and Supremacy Leng Yu of the Extreme Ice Empire both laughed. The North U Continent's strength couldn't be compared to the Middle Heaven Continent, but it was the leader of the other 4 continents. Stepping on the other 3 continents was one of the joys of the North U Continent. Chapter 562. Reverend Mo Jian and the others looked at the younger generation of the North Uther Continent. Indeed, there was a young man and a woman standing behind Reverend Netherflame and Reverend Lengyu. They were both 8-star venerables. Behind the solitary sword venerables stood a green-clothed swordsman who looked to be about 20 years old. Although he was a 7-star venerables, his aura wasn't any weaker than the other two 8-star venerables. Gu Qianshan of the ancient Nether Empire, Ling Ningxuang of the extreme Ice Empire, and Yi Jianga of the Sword Edge Empire were the three most outstanding geniuses of the North Yuther continent. Among them, Gu Qianshan and Ling Ningxuang were 8-star venerables who had the ability to challenge those above their level. They had become famous early on and were already 24 years old. Yi Jianga was a rising star who had become a 7-star venerables at the age of 20. Her strength was even more incredible, and she wasn't any weaker than Gu Qianshan and Ling Ningxuang. As an 8-star venerable master, he could still challenge someone of a higher level. In normal times, he would be a rare existence in the Middle Heaven continent. As for a 7-star venerable master who could defeat a 9-star venerable master, it was a rare occurrence in the Middle Heaven continent. Among the younger generation of the North Yuther continent, there were 2 8-star venerables who could challenge those above their level, and 1 7-star venerables who could defeat those above their level. In this golden age of martial arts, the younger generation of the Middle Sky continent was definitely more outstanding than normal times. In the eyes of the seniors of the North Yuther continent, although the younger generation of the North Yuther continent was outstanding, they couldn't be compared to the younger generation of the Great Yuan dynasty. However, they shouldn't be inferior to the younger generation of the Middle Sky continent's 12 empires. As for the younger generation of the other 3 continents, the seniors of the North Yuther continent naturally didn't take them seriously. Among the younger generation of the North Yuther continent, there were 3 9-star venerables, and the younger generation of the other 3 continents couldn't be compared to them. Facing Reverend Netherflame's arrogance, the reverends of the other 3 continents all turned their heads and ignored him. For a time, only the martial artists of the North Yuther continent were gesticulating and talking with confidence. The martial artists of the other 3 continents were silent. Not long after, the younger generation of the Middle Sky continent's 12 empires arrived at the starry arena. The martial practitioners of the 4 great continents stood in the 4 cardinal directions of the grand galactic arena. They didn't know how Yi Xing had offended the Middle Sky continent's Eastern Han Empire's younger generation. The Eastern Han Empire was a peak 2nd-grade force. Even if the Eastern Divine Continent's 3 high-grade empires were combined, they still couldn't compare to a single Eastern Han Empire. This Han Cheng was an 8-star venerable, and was clearly one of the top geniuses of the Eastern Han Empire's younger generation. Yi Xing came from a humble background, and there were many martial practitioners of the Eastern Divine Continent who didn't like him. Seeing that he had offended such a strong enemy, they were all gloating. Yi Xing looked at Han Cheng indifferently and said, "You're just a loser who lost to me. So what if you found me? Loser?" An 8-star venerable of the Eastern Han Empire's younger generation was defeated by Yi Xing? When the Eastern Divine Continent's martial practitioners heard this, they were all shocked and tongue-tied. Han Cheng's face was filled with anger. In the Starry Sky Arena, fighting was forbidden outside of the battle space. At this moment, even the venerables of the Eastern Han Empire couldn't do anything to Yi Xing. "Brat, go ahead and be arrogant. When the genius selection starts later, you better hope you don't meet Crown Prince Han Bin. Otherwise, I'll kill you," Han Cheng said viciously. Although Han Cheng was an 8-star venerable and had the strength to fight a 9-star venerable, he wasn't the number 1 genius of the Eastern Han Empire. Crown Prince Han Bin was. Han Bin was already at the peak of the 8th level of the astral realm, and his battle strength was invincible among 9-star venerables. Han Qing knew that Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian were very strong when they teamed up. Even a 9-star venerable wouldn't be a match for them. However, in the Starry Sky Arena, teaming up wasn't allowed. Everyone could only fight alone. Moreover, the Starry Sky Arena forbade the use of formations and weapons. One could only use weapons to increase one's strength. Yi Xing's goal this time was to become a son of the stars. He only treated the younger generation of the Deyuan dynasty as his opponents. What was the crown prince of the Eastern Han Empire? Yi Xing smiled faintly and said, "Ha, I'll be waiting." The Starry Sky Arena's teleportation formation could only be used by the Starry Sky Temple. However, from the Starry Sky Arena to the Starry Sky continent, one could directly teleport to the various continents. After that, Yi Xing directly teleported back to the Eastern Divine Continent. Why would he be afraid of the Eastern Han Empire? Chapter 563. Han Cheng returned to the group of martial artists from the Dong Han Empire and whispered something in the ear of a young martial artist. This young martial artist was also an 8-star venerable. Among the younger generation of the Dong Han Empire, there were only 2 8-star venerables. Other than Han Cheng, the other was the Crown Prince, Han Bin. Han Bin's gaze shot towards Yi Xing, revealing a hint of disdain at the corner of his mouth. Yi Xing glanced back indifferently, not taking the other party seriously. After all the martial artists from the 12 empires had arrived, the martial artists from the Great Yuan dynasty finally arrived. As soon as the martial artists from the Great Yuan dynasty appeared, a terrifying aura swept over. This was the aura of a king. Among the 100 or so martial artists from the Great Yuan dynasty, there were more than 10 kings. The aura that these kings released made the martial artists from the 12 empires and the 4 great continents tremble in fear. There were only 100 people from the Great Yuan dynasty participating in the 3rd genius selection. However, the cultivation and strength of these young geniuses far exceeded that of the 12 empires and the 4 great continents. Among the young geniuses from the Great Yuan dynasty, there were 6 9-star venerables, more than 38-star venerables, and the rest were 7-star venerables. In the 4 great continents, other than a few 8-star venerables, the highest cultivation was Astral Star Realm Level 7. In the other continents, they would be geniuses of the younger generation. However, in the Great Yuan dynasty, they were the most ordinary of the 100 people. Moreover, the young geniuses from the Great Yuan dynasty had stronger masters. Even if they had the same cultivation, their strength would be stronger than the martial artists from the 4 great continents. The Great Yuan dynasty cultivators directly entered the large arena in the center before stopping. More than 10 kings stood at the front of the crowd. Among them, a middle-aged king walked forward. He wore a long black robe with dragon patterns embroidered on it. He was very tall, taller than most of the martial artists by a head. This middle-aged king in black had the most terrifying aura. It was like the sun in the sky, making people not dare to look at him directly. This person, could he be? Yi Xing guessed that this person was probably the current ruler of the Great Yuan dynasty. Greetings, Supreme King. While Yi Xing was pondering, the cultivators of the Yuan dynasty, be it the martial emperors, martial highnesses, or the juniors, all knelt down on one knee and yelled. Yi Xing was right. This person was the current Supreme King of the Great Yuan dynasty, Meng Tai, the only 4-star king in the Starland. The grand arena in the starry skies would only be opened once every 30 years. It was a battle that concerned the destiny of the astral plane, and was a major event of the highest order. Every time the heavenly fate rankings were held, the Yuan Paragon King would personally preside over it. This was the custom. Greetings, Supreme King. Seeing this, the venerables of the 12 empires and the 4 continents immediately knelt down on one knee and saluted the Supreme King Meng Tai. The juniors followed closely behind him, and Yi Xing was no exception. The paramount king, Meng Tai, swept his gaze around. Finally, his gaze landed on the arena in the east. He sized up the martial artists of the younger generation. When the utmost King Meng Tai's gaze landed on him, Yi Xing felt as though his body had been pierced by steel needles, causing him to feel a dull pain. Not long after, the Supreme King Meng Tai retracted his gaze and lightly said, "Rise." Although his voice was light, it seemed to resound in everyone's ears. After everyone stood up, the Supreme King Meng Tai said, "Martial arts is flourishing today, and geniuses are emerging in large numbers. Although the 4 wildlands are filled with amazing geniuses, this king is unwilling to allow the geniuses of the 4 wildlands to compete for the heavenly fate rankings with the Middle Sky Continent's geniuses. As long as you are outstanding enough, you will be able to enter the heavenly fate rankings and receive the full support of the Great Yuan dynasty." "Thank you, Supreme King." The martial artists of the 4 continents said in unison. The 4 wild lands that the Supreme King Mengtai spoke of were obviously the 4 continents apart from the Middle Sky continent. The Supreme King Mengtai nodded slightly and said, "The rules of the heavenly fate rankings will be the same as before. The 4 small arenas will each select 25 young geniuses. A total of 100 young geniuses will enter the central arena and compete for the heavenly fate rankings with the Great Yuan Dynasty's geniuses. The selection process will be controlled by the Starry Skies Arena. Whether you can leave your name on the heavenly fate rankings will depend on your own efforts. It will be fair and just. Now, I announce that the heavenly fate rankings will officially begin." After the Supreme King finished speaking, he waved his hand and the kings behind him all walked towards the central arena. When they reached the edge of the arena, the kings took out large amounts of high-grade star crystals and placed them into the grooves at the edge of the arena. Soon, the entire Starry Skies Arena was covered with a layer of array light. The Starry Skies Arena had been activated. The heavenly fate rankings, which were held once every 30 years, had officially begun. Within the array light, martial artists with life wheels over 25 years old didn't feel anything. However, the young geniuses with life wheels under 25 years old all felt a warm sensation when they were shown on by the array light. Their bodies involuntarily rose up into the air. The young geniuses all rose to a height of 100 zhang. The light of the formations split the space into pieces, and each of the young geniuses was in a different space. In the air above the eastern arena, there were a total of 200 young geniuses. 100 of them came from the East Divine Continent. Since Yi Tianhe had fallen, there were naturally young geniuses to replace him. The other 100 came from the 3 great empires of the Middle Sky Continent. In the air, a voice sounded out, "There are a total of 200 people. Each person will fight 10 battles at random. Those who lose 3 times in a row will be eliminated. The top 25 will be decided based on their winning percentage. Those who see blood will lose." The same voice sounded out in all the other directions. In the first stage, there were only 4 smaller arenas in the east, south, west, and north. Once the top 25 were decided from each arena, they would enter the central arena. Once again, there would be a total of 200 people, and the top 100 heavenly fate rankings would be decided. Yi Xing suddenly felt the space around him shift. In the blink of an eye, he was moved to another array space. Another martial artist was also moved to this array space. This grand arena in the starry sky was an extremely large and complex array space. In the blink of an eye, it wasn't just Yi Xing who was moved to the same array space. Instead, the 200 people were divided into 2 groups and moved to 100 different array spaces. The elder martial artists below all looked up at the sky. The array spaces were translucent and they were able to see the battles taking place in each array space. Yi Xing's opponent was a 6-star sage, not a martial artist from the East Divine Continent. This 6-star sage was called Liang Tong and he was a young genius from the Dongliang Empire. A 6-star sage was one of the weakest amongst the young geniuses of the Dongliang, Donghan, and Dongyun empires. Bang! Yi Xing casually pushed out and Liang Tong was sent flying backwards. He slammed into the array walls in the air and spat out a mouthful of blood. Those who saw blood would lose. Chapter 564. 1 win in a row, 2 wins in a row, 3 wins in a row. Yi Xing's previous opponents were all 6-star immortals, and they were all easily defeated by Yi Xing in 1 move. Soon, Yi Xing had his 4th opponent. Xianxia was stunned when he saw Yi Xing. He had won 3 matches in a row, but he did not expect to meet Yi Xing in his 4th match. After being defeated by Yi Tianhe, Xianxia's arrogant character had been restrained a lot. He no longer thought that he was the best among the younger generation. Especially after seeing the geniuses of the younger generation in the Middle Heaven continent, he realized his shortcomings and became somewhat cautious. However, Xianxia was still confident in Yi Xing. After all, he could easily defeat Mo Tong if he went all out. In Xianxia's opinion, even if Yi Xing was stronger than Mo Tong, he could not be much stronger. Xiangyang's eyes suddenly became vicious, and he said coldly, "Yi Xing, I said I would deal with you in the Starry Sky Arena, hee." Yi Xing looked at Xiangyang indifferently, as if he was looking at an ant. "Noisy!" Yi Xing waved his hand and slapped toward Xiangyang's face. If the two of them were equal in strength, such an action was tantamount to courting death, because the opponent had countless ways to kill you before the slap landed on his face. However, if there was a great disparity in strength between the two, it was a different story. Seeing Yi Xing rush up to slap him, Xiangyang was angry but also excited. A best spiritual weapon sword suddenly appeared in his hand, and he waved it, trying to cut off Yi Xing's entire hand. Ding! Yi Xing's other hand flicked out a finger. With a crisp sound, the best spiritual weapon sword flew out of Xiangyang's hand. Bang! Almost at the same time, Xiangyang's body flew out, and a bloody handprint appeared on his face. He spat out blood and broken teeth, and hit the void formation wall hard. Xiangyang saw blood, and with a flash of light, he was teleported to another array formation space to recuperate. Yi Xing had obtained 4 consecutive victories. 5 consecutive victories, 6 consecutive victories, 7 consecutive victories. In the following battles, Yi Xing won with a single move. His physical strength was comparable to a half-step honorable realm expert. Even if his cultivation base was sealed at the 7th level of the astral realm, his physical strength did not change. Of course, he could defeat everyone in his way. There weren't many martial artists who had a winning streak. Sometimes, even an 8-star venerable master might be defeated when the two of them met. However, if one was defeated once or twice, there was still a chance. Only when the number of defeats reached 3 would one be eliminated. There were not many chances for the strong to meet each other. Therefore, as long as one's strength was indeed strong and one's luck was not extremely bad, one would not be eliminated in advance. However, if one's strength was weak, they would basically be defeated 3 times very quickly. They would directly fall from the sky and land on the stage, no longer affected by the light of the formation. The weak were gradually eliminated, and those who remained were the strong. As the matches went on, the chances of the strong meeting each other increased. In the 8th round, Yi Xing's opponent was Han Cheng. Han Cheng was an 8-star venerable master, and he had the battle strength of a 9-star venerable master. He was much stronger now than he was in the primordial ruins. He was one of the top 9-star venerables. However, it was a tragedy for him to meet Yi Xing. Just like Xiangyang, Han Cheng was also sent flying by Yi Xing with a single slap. His teeth were broken all over the ground. After 8 consecutive victories, Yi Xing met another 8-star venerable master in the 9th round. He was a junior genius from the Eastern Cloud Empire, and his strength was on par with Han Cheng's. Yi Xing easily won 9 consecutive victories. Yi Xing's last battle came. His opponent was the crown prince of the Eastern Cloud Empire, Han Bin. Han Bin's cultivation base was at the peak of the 8th level of the astral realm, and he was almost invincible among the 9-star venerables. He was one of the top geniuses among the 3 empires in the east of the Middle Sky continent. Only an 8-star venerable master from the Eastern Cloud Empire, who was also invincible among the 9-star venerables, could be mentioned in the same breath as Han Bin. Yi Xing had only revealed the cultivation of a 7-star venerable master, but he had defeated all his opponents. Even 2 8-star venerable masters had been defeated by him. He had already attracted the attention of many senior martial artists in the arena. Even many senior martial artists from the Deyuan dynasty in the central arena were paying attention to Yi Xing. However, there was another outstanding person in the northern arena. It was Yi Jianga, a junior genius from the Jianfeng Empire in the North Tranquil Continent. Even the 8-star venerables from the 3 empires in the north of the Middle Sky Continent couldn't take more than 2 or 3 moves from Yi Jianga. In addition, there were also outstanding juniors in the western and southern arenas. However, they were all from the Middle Sky Continent, and they were different from Yi Xing and Yi Jianga. Therefore, Yi Xing and Yi Jianga received more attention. "You are the martial artist from the East Divine Continent that Han Xing mentioned?" Han Bin looked coldly at Yi Xing and said, "You are very unlucky to have met me." Yi Xing still looked calm and said, "You are the unlucky one." Ah! Han Bin laughed disdainfully. Suddenly, an extremely cold aura was emitted from his body. Great Ice Palm. Freeze him! Han Bin shouted and pushed the Icy Star gang to the limit. At the same time, he used the Icy Star form and slammed his palm toward Yi Xing. A cold wind blew. Wherever the palm wind passed, the void condensed into frost. Even Yi Xing's body was covered with a layer of white frost. That! Han Bin shouted coldly. His palm, which was covered in ice, instantly arrived in front of Yi Xing. He wanted to smash Yi Xing, who was sealed in ice, into pieces with his palm. Bang! Just as Han Bin's palm was about to land on Yi Xing, there was a sudden explosion. The white frost outside Yi Xing's body exploded and turned into powder. Boom! Yi Xing punched out and collided with Han Bin's icy palm. In the explosion, Yi Xing was as still as a mountain. He did not even take half a step back. On the other hand, the ice in Han Bin's palm was shattered. His body was even thrown back by the terrifying force. How is this possible? Han Bin was shocked. He had used his astrology and his full strength was enough to defeat a venerable 9 stars. However, he was sent flying by a venerable 7 stars with a single punch. Before Han Bin could think further, Yi Xing took a big step forward. His figure flashed like a flowing light and caught up with Han Bin's retreating figure. He punched out again. Yi Xing's speed was too fast. Han Bin was retreating and could not dodge in time. He was hit by the punch. Bang! Han Bin's protective astral gang shattered instantly. He spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. He collided with the void array wall and was teleported away by the array. Yi Xing had won 10 consecutive victories. With 10 consecutive victories, he would definitely enter the next stage and compete for the Heaven's Will with the younger generation in the central arena. Next, Yi Xing waited for the other martial artists to compete. The void array wall did not arrange any more opponents for him. Chapter 565. The array split the space into multiple spaces, allowing multiple battles to take place at the same time. As the cultivators who lost 3 times were eliminated, the number of juniors in the Eastern Arena decreased. In the end, there were only 25 people left. Among the 25, only 3 of them had a 10-match winning streak. They were Yi Xing, Wei Qingxian, and Liang Long. Apart from them, the rest had 1 or even 2 defeats. Among the 3, the most dazzling one was undoubtedly Yi Xing. Firstly, Yi Xing's cultivation was only at the 7th level of the astral realm. Secondly, Yi Xing had defeated Han Bin, who wasn't any weaker than Liang Long. Apart from Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian, Xianxia and Mo Tong were also in the top 25. They each had 2 defeats. Among the juniors of the East Divine Continent, there were a total of 4 who had won in the first cultivation stage and obtained the qualifications to participate in the second stage of the Heavenly Fate ranking battle. This shocked the cultivators of the Eastern Liang, Eastern Han, and Eastern Cloud empires. Each of the 3 empires had 2 8-star venerables and more than 37-star venerables. In their opinion, the juniors of the East Divine Continent couldn't be compared to the juniors of the 3 empires. According to the cultivators of the 3 empires, it would be considered good if there were 1 or 2 juniors from the East Divine Continent who could enter the top 25. Who would have thought that there would be 4 of them? Furthermore, 2 of them had won all 10 matches. They were even more outstanding than the juniors of the 3 empires of the Middle Sky Continent. The juniors of the East Divine Continent shone brightly in the Eastern Arena. The juniors of the North Tranquil Continent performed even better in the Northern Arena. In the Northern Arena, there were 3 people who had won all 10 matches. Only one of them was from the 3 empires of the Middle Sky Continent. The other 2 were from the North Tranquil Continent. They were Gu Qianshan from the Ancient Nether Empire and Yi Jianga from the Jianfeng Empire. The 7-star venerables had won all 10 matches. Like Yi Xing, Yi Jianga was the most outstanding person in the Northern Arena and attracted the attention of many cultivators from the Great Yuan dynasty. Other than Gu Qianshan and Yi Jianga, there were 3 more people from the North Tranquil Continent who had entered the top 25. one more than the East Divine Continent. As the strongest of the 4 continents, the North Nether Continent was indeed extraordinary. As for the Western Continent and the Southern Continent, the performance of the young geniuses of the Western Continent and the Southern Continent was very ordinary. Only one of them had entered the list of 25 winners. Among them, the most outstanding junior genius in the Western arena was Prince Yi Weinan of the Western Leaf Empire. The most outstanding junior genius in the Southern arena was Prince Shirlei of the Southern Rock Empire. These two were the only 9 stars superior in each arena. Even in the Great Yuan dynasty, there were only 6 9-star venerables among the younger generation geniuses. Naturally, they were eye-catching. Yi Xing, Shirlei Yi Weinan, and Yi Jianga were the most outstanding geniuses of the younger generation in the 4 arenas. Other than Shirlei, the other 3 had the surname Yi. This made the paramount king Meng Tai and the martial artists of the Great Yuan dynasty who knew the secret of the fiend's star frown slightly. Among the 6 9-star venerables of the younger generation of the Great Yuan dynasty, there was a genius with the surname Yi. He was a descendant of a sovereign clan. In addition, among the 8-star venerables and 7-star venerables, there were several geniuses with the surname Yi. They were all very outstanding. Among the younger geniuses, other than the Meng royal clan, the most outstanding ones were the martial artists with the surname Yi. Furthermore, the Meng royal clan was only from the Great Yuan dynasty. However, the geniuses with the surname Yi could be said to be all over the world. There were the descendants of the Great Yuan dynasty, such as the descendants of the royal clan with the surname Yi. There were the descendants of the empires, such as the prince of the Western Leaf Empire, Yi Weinan. There were also the descendants of other continents, such as Yi Jianga of the North Tranquil Continent and Yi Xing of the East Divine Continent. The fiend's star is in chaos, and I am born with the surname Yi. Now that there are so many geniuses with the surname Yi, the heavens are trying to confuse my eyes. The paramount king Meng Tai muttered in his heart as a ruthless light flashed in his eyes. The paramount king Meng Tai's intention was to kill the wrong person rather than let the wrong person go. However, if he were to kill indiscriminately without confirming the death of the fiend's star, his heart wouldn't be at peace. Therefore, he had to find the fiend's star in chaos. Only after confirming the identity of the fiend's star would he be able to feel at ease. Otherwise, even if he were to kill the wrong person, it would be in vain. Since it is the fiend's star in chaos, it must be the most monstrous one. Heavens, let's see how long you can confuse my eyes. As the selection continues, there will definitely be one who will stand out. If the fiend's star continues to hide, all the geniuses with the surname Yi who entered the heavenly fate rankings will die. Killing intent surged in the paramount king Meng Tai's heart. If he couldn't confirm the identity of the fiend's star in chaos, then he would rather kill the wrong person than let the wrong person go. On the 4 stages, the 25 victorious geniuses were guided by the formation and moved towards the central stage. In the air above the central stage, the geniuses of the Great Yuan dynasty all had disdainful looks in their eyes. In their eyes, whether it was the other 4 continents or the 12 empires of the Middle Sky continent, they were all ants, not even worth mentioning. The Great Yuan dynasty was the ruler of the Starry Continent. The younger generations of the Great Yuan dynasty were the future of the Starry Continent. According to past practice, the geniuses of the 12 empires who were able to enter the heavenly fate rankings were only 1 or 2 from each empire. More than 80% of the geniuses on the heavenly fate rankings were from the Great Yuan dynasty. In the Great Yuan dynasty, not only was there the Meng royal clan, there were also the various king clans that were vassals of the Great Yuan dynasty. The number of geniuses in the younger generations was innumerable, far surpassing the other empires. The second stage of the heavenly fate rankings will be decided in a single battle. 10 battles per group, start now. A voice sounded out from the formation. Very quickly, the geniuses of the younger generations were moved to the 4 corners, creating a large empty space in the middle that was divided into 10 groups. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The 20 geniuses of the younger generations were guided by the formation and moved at high speed. Every 2 people were sent to a different area. This battle was extremely simple. The winner would be able to enter the Heavenly Fate rankings, while the loser would be directly eliminated. In order to avoid a clash between the strong, there was naturally a set of rules for the arrangement of opponents. That was, those with a higher cultivation base would fight against those with a lower cultivation base, and the remaining cultivators of the same level would fight against each other randomly. Although this kind of battle wasn't absolutely fair, it still greatly reduced the chances of the strong encountering each other. If, under these circumstances, a clash between the strong still occurred, then that would mean that the eliminated cultivator had no fate with the Heavenly Fate rankings. On one side, the strongest geniuses of the younger generation from the Great Yuan dynasty were sent out, while on the other side, the weakest geniuses of the younger generations were sent out. The results were obvious. The geniuses of the younger generations from the Great Yuan dynasty were victorious. You're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.